Chapter 72. Chapter 72. Repeatedly throwing the match. Ling Han used the shocking electricity sword arts, not displaying any weakness or conceding in any way. Xia Zhongguang was indeed very strong. With one wave of the spear, he actually managed to form 2 flashes of spear qi. See, a round of surprised gasps broke out downstage. 2 flashes of qi. This could be considered a very outstanding accomplishment among the younger generation of Diyuan City, especially since Xia Zhongguang was really too young. He was only 18 years old this year. By the time he had reached the current age of the 4th prince, Li Dongyu and Jin Wuji, how many flashes of qi would he be able to form? 3 flashes? Or even 4 flashes? The real sign of having stepped into the ranks of rulers. 2 flashes, huh? Ling Han smiled softly, and with a wave of his sword, 2 flashes of sword qi similarly appeared. Pooh! Everyone once again choked. They hadn't even recovered from their first shock, and here comes another? Ling Han had also managed to form the 2nd flash of sword qi. Could Diyuan City be about to emerge as a new power? One genius after another appeared in close succession. Xia Zhongguang was also extremely astonished. Indeed, he had formed the 1st flash of qi through hard work and effort. But the 2nd flash was something he had obtained when he accidentally entered into an ancient tomb, where he came into contact with a strange stone plaque. He had lost consciousness at that point, and saw many memories that were now his own. After he woke up, he discovered that he had somehow formed a 2nd flash of spear qi. Could it be that Ling Han had somehow obtained this kind of chance encounter too? If he hadn't, then he really was too terrifying. To be able to form 2 flashes of sword qi at the young age of 17 years old, he was practically a monster. Xia Zhongguang continued to be on the offensive for long, while yet did not seem to be making any progress. He could not help feeling a bit dispirited, and when he recalled that Lien Tao before him, he could not help thinking, there are 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind this person, while I am obviously no match for the 4th prince. Then, what difference is there between the 6th and 7th place? Why don't I take this chance to do him a favor then? When his thoughts turned in this direction, he resolutely ceased his attack and said, Brother Ling is indeed extraordinarily strong. I forfeit. Why was there another forfeit? Weren't they obviously locked in a stalemate, with neither fighter having an advantage over the other? Aside from those few who had attended the 4th prince's banquet a few days ago, the rest was very confused. But still, Ling Han had showed that he had formed 2 flashes of sword qi in this battle, and so indeed proved that he was more powerful than Lien Tao. So Lien Tao's forfeit could be claimed as him having foresight. Could it be that Ling Han was actually even more powerful than what he had shown up to now, and that was the reason why Xia Zhongguang had simply forfeited the battle? Ling Han shook his head, smiled, and said, Brother Xia is too humble. Let me offer my best wishes that Brother Ling may obtain an even better result. Let us be on closer terms in the future, please. Xia Zhongguang leapt onto the 7th tournament stage. It was at this moment that Jin Wuji too had issued a challenge, the other party being Li Dongyu. There was no suspense about the result. Within a mere 10 moves, Li Dongyu had been defeated by Jin Wuji. The longing he felt to enter into Huyang Academy also intensified with this loss. Holding onto this momentum firmly, Jin Wuji continued on to challenge the 4th prince. Ling Han had no interest in watching the battles of others. After a short rest, he continued on to challenge the 5th stage master. The 5th stage master was Lu Yu. He was also a genius that had only emerged within the last 2 years. Because these 2 big battles were ongoing at the same time, majority of the spectators went over to watch the battle between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji. Only people like Ling Dongxing, Lu Yutong, and Li Hao paid attention to Ling Han's battle. Brother Ling, please. Lu Yu was also very polite. It could be argued that no one in the whole of Rain Country dared to ignore the existence of a black-grayed alchemist, and there were as many as 3 such alchemists standing behind Ling Han. "Please." Ling Han brandished his sword in an elaborate wave. His first move was 2 flashes of sword qi. Since he had already revealed a portion of his true prowess, he did not continue to hide it. "Lu, you could be said to be tied with Xia Zhongguang in terms of prowess." Since Xia Zhongguang was no match for Ling Han, naturally Lu Yu wasn't either. After exchanging a few tens of moves, Lu Yu could not help thinking, there are 3 black-grayed alchemists standing behind this person, and in any case I wouldn't be able to get the first place, so why not do him a favor? As a result, Lu Yu too very frankly forfeited. Thankfully, most of the spectators' attention had been drawn to the huge battle between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji. Otherwise, there'd definitely be suspicions about this tournament being feigned. Ling Han again rose to a higher ranking, and ahead of him only stood 4 people: Bailey Tingyan, Li Dongyu, Jin Wuji, and Qi Yongyi. Who would have thought this would happen before the tournament? Ling Dongxing could not help growing excited. If Ling Han managed to defeat Bailey Tingyan, he'd gain the right to battle with Jin Wuji and the 4th prince. Getting the first place was no longer a dream. The great battle between Qi Yongyi and Jin Wuji was still continuing. The 2 young geniuses both made a very powerful display. One was using palm techniques, while the other was using fist techniques. They have both formed qi, and there were as many as 3 flashes on each side, so they already possessed the preliminary demeanor of a ruler. And it was at this moment that Ling Han issued a challenge to Bailey Tingyan. Ling Dongxing became even more anxious. If Ling Han emerged victorious from this battle, then he'd doubtlessly be able to defeat Li Dongyu and ascend to the 3rd place. Top 3, that was impressive enough. Could he still ask for more? "Brother Ling." Bailey Tingyan was also very polite towards Ling Han. He did not even put on any airs as the young sect master of the Bailey sect. He was even friendlier than he had been with the 4th prince. After all, if the 4th prince did not manage to inherit the position of the Yuan king, then his status could not be compared to even himself, as the 1st prince would definitely do his utmost to suppress him. But Ling Han was different. There were 3 black-grayed alchemists standing behind him. "Please, please." The 2 fighters respectively spoke a word of invitation. Bailey Tingyan directly drew his staff of destruction and said, "Brother Ling is very powerful. If I do not try my best, then that would be the greatest disrespect to Brother Ling." "Haha, then let me also experience the might of a spirit weapon," Ling Han said with a smile as he lightly waved the long sword in his hand, producing a soft hum. "Take care then." Bailey Tingyan harnessed the black staff and charged in a ferocious attack towards Ling Han. 7 seals lit up in close succession, and half a black skull appeared, pouncing towards Ling Han. This black skull contained a sliver of will of a powerful warrior. Initially, it would be able to create an invisible pressure on a martial artist in gushing spring tear and directly shatter the spirit of a martial artist of element gathering tear. However, because too much time had passed, this spirit weapon had also experienced serious deterioration. Its power had long since degraded from how it initially was, and this skull could only produce a limited effect on a martial artist of element gathering tear now. But if it wasn't because for that, Bailey Tingyan wouldn't have been able to wield this spirit weapon with his current strength. Though Ling Han was no longer the powerful warrior of Heaven Tier he had been in the past, and there only remained a sliver of will of a warrior of Heaven Tier within him, Heaven Tier was still Heaven Tier. Even if it was a mere sliver, it was enough to sweep away all challengers without contention. This black skull was not able to affect him the slightest bit. He used the shocking electricity sword arts. His sword was like a rainbow, ding, 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 ding. The sword and staff repeatedly clashed, creating friction. 2 flashes of sword qi moved unhindered, and there was no sign of Ling Han falling into a disadvantageous position. Quick, look there. Ling Han is having a great battle with Bailey Tingyin. What? He's actually so powerful. No wonder Xia, Zhongguang, and the others forfeited so fast previously. They had already known that Ling Han was so powerful. Damn, when did this kind of freak appear? He's just in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, and he's actually powerful to this extent. More and more people were attracted to that battle. They felt that a single pair of eyes was not enough for them. They wanted to watch the clash of the strongest between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji, but they also wanted to watch the battle of the brightest of the younger generation between Ling Han and Bailey Tingyin. Chapter 73. Chapter 73. 4 Flashes of Sword Qi. There were only a rare few that knew that Ling Han had not yet displayed his full abilities, because he had only used 2 flashes of Sword Qi, while his limit was actually 4. And only Ling Han knew that he had not yet stimulated Lone Wolf's blood, which would actually upgrade his battle prowess to yet another level. This was mainly because Ling Han's will was strong enough, so the influence of the Staff of Destruction on the battle was barely visible. This meant that Bailey Tingyan's attacks were mostly dependent on his own power, and he was on a lower level than Li Dongyu. So how could he possibly be a match for Ling Han? In this fierce battle and clash of the young generation, Ling Han was gradually gaining the upper hand. Hey, even Jin Wuji hadn't had such an easy time fighting him, right? Does that mean that Ling Han is even stronger than Jin Wuji? Someone exclaimed in shock. That can't be. The power behind every one of his attacks is inferior to Jin Wuji's, so how is it possible that he's stronger than Jin Wuji? Someone else immediately retorted. But why did Jin Wuji have such a hard time during his battle, yet Ling Han so easily got the upper hand? None of them knew about the fact that the Staff of Destruction had the ability to suppress the opponent's spirit, so of course they did not understand why Ling Han could easily suppress Bailey Tingyin when his attacks were obviously on a weaker level than Jin Wuji's attacks. They were still perplexed, even after much thought. Meanwhile, Bailey Tingyin had started thinking, the few people before me had obviously done Ling Han a favor. If I don't do the same, he may resent me. Moreover, I obviously can't get the 1st place anyways. So what difference is there between the 4th and 5th place? When his thoughts took this turn, he quickly drew his staff back and retreated. He said, Brother Ling is indeed very powerful. I forfeit. Damn, why was there another forfeit again? The spectators were just starting to get excited from watching the battle. How come this Bailey Tingyin did the same as those before him, giving up just like that? What kind of background did this Ling Han have, causing every opponent of his to do him favors like that? Ling Han stepped onto the 4th tournament stage, and he only had 3 opponents left ahead of him. Although he had expended a bit of energy battling Bailey Tingyin, he could still fight another battle. Ling Han gave a great leap and arrived on the 3rd tournament stage. Congratulations to Brother Ling for overcoming all difficulties to make it this far, Li Dongyu said to Ling Han before his expression grew serious, and he said, however, as a sign of my respect for Brother Ling, I will try my best in this battle. Please. Ling Han drew his sword and displayed a sword move in response. Li Dongyu gave a long hiss and prepared to use his little Tianyuan hands, charging towards Ling Han in attack. Although he was bare-handed after learning this martial arts technique, once he began circulating origin power, his hands would be like finely forged iron, as firm as rock. Even sharp blades had no hope of causing injury to his hands, or at least the ordinary iron sword Ling Han was wielding had no hope of injuring his hands. Ding, 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 ding! As the blade and the flesh of hand clashed, clanging noises continuously echoed out, and there were fiery sparks flying about from the point of contact between the hand and the blade. Li Dongyu was in the 9th layer of element gathering tier, so he exceeded both Bailey Tingyin and even Ling Han in prowess. Thus, after exchanging a few blows, Ling Han could actually feel numbness spreading through the hand he wielded his sword in. However, he had already learnt the body of dead tree ability from the indestructible Heaven Scroll, so this kind of damage did not affect him in the slightest. Ling Han shook his head. Such a clash of brute force would be non-conclusive unless one of the fighters had a power advantage or both fighters were evenly matched. Even if his body was tough and indomitable due to the body of dead tree skill, he had learnt, and thus avoided damage from the tremors caused by clashing with Li Dongyu, it was still absolutely pointless. He used the shocking electricity sword arts, and his 2 flashes of sword chi continuously danced, instantaneously turning his disadvantageous position back around. But the name of Li Dongyu was not famous from his talking big. He had managed to form 3 flashes of chi, and as his palms flew in an attack, it was obvious that his power was of a terrifying level. He had lost to Qi Yongyi and Jin Wuji previously simply because those 2 were even stronger than he was. His little Tianyuan hands was also a yellow-grade, high-level martial arts technique. So Ling Han did not possess an advantage in terms of the grade of martial arts technique. In terms of power, he was weaker than Li Dongyu by a single layer of cultivation level. So faced with Li Dongyu's full power attacks, Ling Han gradually fell into a disadvantage. What's the matter? Technically, Bailey Tingyin should be stronger than Li Dongyu, right? Ling Han had an easy time against Bailey Tingyin, but why is he having such a tough time against Li Dongyu now? Could it be that Bailey Tingyin had not tried his best just now? That's definitely the case. Otherwise, how would the current situation be possible? I really am curious now. What kind of background does this Ling Han have? Why is it that all his previous opponents had deliberately allowed him to win? All of the spectators were puzzled and extremely curious. Meanwhile, Ling Dongxing was frowning deeply. His son had defeated Bailey Tingyin, so he should have been like an irresistible force, continuing his advance to obtain the 3rd place. Yet why was he in a disadvantage now against the weaker Li Dongyu? A hint of a smile appeared on the corners of Ling Han's lips. Looks like he would have to increase his abilities. With a wave of his long sword, 4 flashes of sword chi simultaneously appeared. Pooh! This time, all spectators choked. All of them were completely struck dumb. For flashes of sword chi, he actually had 4 flashes of sword chi. One has to understand that possessing 4 flashes of sword chi could be considered as a minor accomplishment. Such a person would deserve the name of a ruler, signifying that he could be invincible among those of a certain cultivation level. A 17-year-old ruler. Ling Dongxing was both astonished and elated. He turned to Liu Yutong and asked, "Honor has managed to form 4 flashes of sword chi. Did you already know about this?" N. Liu Yutong nodded. In truth, Ling Han had already managed to form 4 flashes of sword chi when he had only been in body refining tier. But this guy had not wanted to reveal his true talent and display his full prowess all this while. Thus, every time he revealed a bit more of his power, it was always enough to give a shock. Very good. Ling Dongxing heavily slapped his thigh, excitement filling his face. This stupid brat even kept his old man completely in the dark. See if I won't teach him a good lesson when we get back. Liu Yutong hid a smile. She knew that Ling Dongxing felt only joy now. How could he bear to reprimand Ling Han? No wonder his previous opponents had forfeited. This guy has apparently managed to form 4 flashes of sword chi. He could be named a ruler among those of the same cultivation level already. I had never really imagined that such a genius would actually emerge from within our Yuan city. That's true. Among the 36 cities of Rain Country, the martial arts level of our Yuan city has always been below average. But now there actually appeared a genius that has formed 4 flashes of sword chi from within our midst. He is indeed a source of pride for our city. When these 4 flashes of sword chi appeared, it generated a shock that spread through the whole area. Even the clash of the titans between the fourth prince and Jinwuji had paled in comparison as more and more people were drawn over, fighting to get a look at the indomitable might of 4 flashes of sword chi. Li Dongyu's face was full of bitterness. He had worked so hard on his cultivation these 3 years. Originally, he had thought that he would be able to get the first place in the Deyuan tournament this time, but he never imagined that his dreams would be shattered by the fourth prince, causing him to realize that he had fallen behind those in his age range. And now, in a generation younger than his own, there actually appeared a freak that had successfully formed 4 flashes of sword chi, causing his confidence to suffer a severe blow. However, he immediately pulled himself together. As long as he managed to enroll into Huyang Academy, then his prowess would definitely be able to advance by leaps and bounds, and he'd be able to catch up to the fourth prince and Jinwuji. This person has a close relationship with 3 black great alchemists. Moreover, he's also managed to form 4 flashes of sword chi. Why don't I readily forfeit and do him a favor? Li Dongyu thought. The others have all done him favors, so if I don't, it might not look good. When he thought this, he immediately retreated, clasped his hands, and said, Brother Ling is indeed a genius to be able to form 4 flashes of sword chi at the mere age of 17. I am really deeply impressed by your achievements. There is no need to continue the battle. I forfeit. Damn. All of the spectators were depressed. This was the first time that they had seen a genius with 4 flashes of sword chi, and you actually won't fight for a bit longer, letting them enjoy watching to the fullest. Why did you forfeit so soon? Chapter 74. Chapter 74, The Next Battle. Still, Li Dongyu forfeiting was only to be expected. After all, there had been many previous fighters who had forfeited even without any obvious signs of impending loss, so everyone was somewhat prepared that this kind of thing would happen again. Additionally, Ling Han could form 4 flashes of sword chi, which granted him invincibility amongst those of the same cultivation level, even if his cultivation level was still a bit low. Thank you for the match, Ling Han said, clasping his hands in a polite gesture. Yet he couldn't help pondering, would all his opponents let him win all the way to the first place? As the battle between Ling Han and Li Dongyu's battle had concluded, everyone turned their attention back to the duel between the fourth prince and Jinwuji. Both of them were young geniuses who were studying at Huyang Academy, so their respective ability was quite even. There wasn't really too big of a gap in power between the two of them. But when Qiyong started to use the Son of Heaven fist technique, Jinwuji immediately fell into a disadvantage. When the Son of Heaven appears, all shall bow. This was a kind of aura domination, and only a prince like Qiyong would be able to cultivate this technique. Even if Jinwuji learnt the same technique, it would still be useless. He did not possess the royal heritage necessary to tap into its potential. Rumor has it that stealing the divine weapon of a nation would allow the manipulation of that nation's power. It would not only speed up the rate of cultivation, but could also be used against one's enemies, increasing your own battle prowess. Looks like the rumors aren't false. Just a mere prince, and he possesses such power, Ling Han nodded to himself. The power of the nation is an ability that is equivalent to 4 flashes of sword chi. According to the slang of Rain Country, this would be the standard of a ruler. If the Deyuan king were to use this fist technique, he'd probably be able to reach approximately the level of 7 flashes of chi, since he is a real noble lord. For the true ruler of the nation, he'd probably have the power equivalent to 10 flashes of chi at the level of completion. However, chi is only the first step in martial arts. One still has to go through Rei before being able to reach the highest level, heart. Thus, cultivation ultimately still depends on the effort of the individual martial artist, Ling Han thought, yet he had to admit, to be able to manipulate and make use of the power of a nation at the low level of element gathering tier and increase his individual battle prowess to a new level was already impressive enough a feat, even if it was just the tiniest part. Based on Qiyong Ye's current ability, He is practically half a foot into gushing spring tear. Perhaps my little female attendant would be no match for him either. After all, she has just formed the second flash of sword chi, so she still has no way to rival the might of a ruler that he possesses. If it was me, I'd definitely need to use Lone Wolf's blood to upgrade my power to the 9th layer of element gathering tier. Otherwise, I would need to depend on the self-recovery ability of the indestructible Heaven Scroll and slowly wear him down. With the body of dead tree ability that I have now, my defenses are not something that a martial artist in element gathering tier can break through. I had better stick to using Lone Wolf's blood. Indestructible Heaven Scroll is my real trump card. I should avoid using it if I can. While he had been thinking pensively, the battle between Qi Yongyi and Jin Wuji was nearing its conclusion. The Son of Heaven Fist technique granted Qi Yongyi the battle prowess of a ruler and allowed him to completely dominate Jin Wuji. As long as Jin Wuji himself had not yet formed 4 flashes of Qi, he couldn't possibly be a match for Qi Yongyi. There's nothing to be done. Qi Yongyi had the advantage of a good, noble background, and this was something even Liu Yutong could not compare to. Pum! By the time Qi Yongyi threw his 11th punch, Jin Wuji could no longer resist and was directly flung away. With an AO, he spat out 4 consecutive mouthfuls of blood, half kneeling on the floor, no longer able to continue the battle. I have lost, Jin Wuji declared with slight reluctance. Strictly speaking, he had not lost because he was weaker, or because he was less talented. Instead, he had lost because his opponent had a better background than him. How could he not become depressed at this reality? Thank you for the match. Qi Yongyi clasped his hands politely in response. Although his victory was due to the Son of Heaven Fist technique, it could have been possible only if he had learned it successfully. There were so many princes and imperial princes in Rain Country, but how many had actually successfully learned the technique? The name of genius, he bore it without guilt. However, when the two of them saw that Ling Han had actually arrived on the 3rd tournament stage, they could not help being shocked. Previously, they had been too absorbed in their own battle, and so had not seen Ling Han's fight with Bailey Tingyin and Li Dongyu. Naturally, they had no idea that Ling Han was powerful to this extent, or even of the fact that he had formed 4 flashes of sword chi. The other stage masters had wanted to continue watching the match, but since the duel between the 2 greatest young rulers had concluded, they began to issue their own challenges to aim for a better placement. Doing favors for Ling Han was one thing, but if they could manage to get a better rank, who wouldn't want to try? Ling Han waited quietly. After half an hour, he would challenge Jin Wuji. Currently, the space in his dantian was still too small, and with the high-powered rotation of the 5 elements origin nuclei, his reserves of origin power got expended too quickly. After a fierce battle, he had to take alchemical pills to assist his recovery. Thus, this half an hour's time was also very important to him. Very soon, half an hour had passed, and Ling Han leaped onto the 2nd tournament stage to challenge this martial artist that was ranked 2nd in this tournament. This fell into the expectations of all the spectators, and they all stared with their eyes open wide, unwilling to miss a single moment. After all, this was the first genius in the whole of Diyuan City who has managed to form 4 flashes of qi. Jin Wuji had a slightly awkward expression on his face. A few days ago, he was tricked by Ling Han, leading to his public embarrassment. But when he recalled that there were 3 black-grade alchemists behind Ling Han, even if he did not abandon the thoughts of revenge, most likely those seniors of his in the Jin clan would force him to give up such a foolish venture anyway. After all, the very worst group of people you could offend in this world would be alchemists. However, such a great humiliation. How could he simply let it go just like that? Very well, you were the one who challenged me, so I can take advantage of this opportunity to teach you a lesson. As long as I don't deal you any permanent injury, no one will be able to say anything. This is, after all, a martial arts tournament. Jin Wuji thought, his gaze immediately turning sharp. Brotherling, please offer your guidance. He clapped his palms together, and his two hands immediately dazzled brightly like gold. This was Jin Yang Palms, a yellow-grade high-level martial arts technique. Ling Han waved his sword in a sword move and said, "Please." Whoosh! Jin Wuji immediately began a powerful offense. As his palms flew in attack, a resplendent light shone. Ling Han gave a wave of his sword, and 4 flashes of sword chi immediately appeared. Since he had already revealed his abilities, then he naturally had no intention to hide his prowess any longer. "What? 4 flashes of sword chi?" Jin Wuji exclaimed in astonishment, his face twitching involuntarily in his shock. 4 flashes of sword chi. That was a ruler of those in the same cultivation level. Even in the Imperial City, there were only a rare few who have reached the extraordinary height of possessing 4 flashes of chi, and all of them were the absolute powerhouses of the older generation. How could Jin Wuji not be extremely shocked? But he immediately realized that though there were some that were gasping and exclaiming in admiration, and some who were waving their arms and tripping over their feet in excitement, there wasn't a single expression of surprise amongst the spectators. Hey. This was 4 flashes of sword chi. Do you guys not see this? Could it be that it was him who had seen wrongly? Jin Wuji could not help the doubts rising in his heart. After all, just how rare was achieving 4 flashes of sword chi? Even if it had appeared in the Imperial City, it would be enough to create a giant commotion. Yet the people here actually appeared so calm, of course he would be confused. Naturally, he had no idea that these spectators had already experienced the same shock as he just now. So of course there would be no such scenes as people watching wide-eyed and flabbergasted, gaping in shock and wonder. Thankfully, there was one person who gave him face and revealed an extremely shocked expression, and that, of course, was none other than Qi Yongyi. His mouth was partially open in shock, gaping at Ling Han with a completely dumbfounded expression, a faint twitch at the corners of his lips. After Jin Wuji recovered from his shock, he still persisted in his attack. So what if Ling Han had 4 flashes of sword chi? Ling Han's cultivation level was still too low after all. He would definitely not forfeit, just because he had been surprised by the revelation of Ling Han's 4 flashes of sword chi. The 2 fighters were soon engaged in a fierce battle. Chapter 75. Chapter 75. Battle for the Top. Jin Wuji possessed the typical power of someone at the peak period of the 9th layer of element gathering tier, and yellow-grade high-level martial arts techniques were also the most powerful techniques that could be learnt within this cultivation level. Moreover, he had also formed 2 flashes of chi, so among martial artists of element gathering tier, he was someone that was definitely close to the rank of ruler. Unfortunately, his opponent was Ling Han. For flashes of sword chi equated being a ruler of his cultivation level. Jin Wuji felt as if he was facing Qi Yongyi again. The only difference was that Qi Yongyi was stronger in terms of power. In other areas, Ling Han was not inferior in any way to Qi Yongyi. In fact, in terms of reaction speed and ability, he was even better than Qi Yongyi. Was this really a 17-year-old young man? Talent was indeed a terrifying thing. It wasn't until this moment that Jin Wuji finally abandoned all thoughts of vengeance. He even decided to pay a visit to Ling Han with his younger brother in tow to apologize and dissolve the bad feelings between them once and for all. It was because Ling Han would definitely have horrifyingly high achievements in the future, and it was practically guaranteed that he would become someone that exceeded Jin Wuji. Since there was no way he could eliminate this kind of rival, then the best idea was to develop an affable relationship with the former. He could definitely not afford to make an enemy of someone of his caliber. The battle continued on and on. This time, aside from using Lone Wolf's Blood and Indestructible Heaven Scroll, Ling Han had used all the abilities he had on hand, allowing him to enjoy the battle to the fullest. Unfortunately, the 5 elements origin nuclei expended origin power at a very rapid pace, which would not allow him to persist for too long. It'd be great if he managed to obtain the Dark Moon Grass. It would help to expand the space in his dantian by many times. After battling for more than 100 moves, the two of them still maintained a very evenly matched balance. Jin Wuji could not help thinking, there are 3 black-grade alchemists behind this guy, and anyways, I won't be. Similarly with those before him, he chose to deliberately throw the match and do a favor for Ling Han. This way, when he brought his brother to pay Ling Han a visit and apologize, it'd probably be easier to dissolve the remaining bad feelings between them. Brother Ling is indeed brilliant in martial arts. I forfeit. He swiftly retreated backwards, clasped his hands together, and declared his forfeit. Ling Han's later momentum was already a bit lacking, and he was about to start circulating lone wolf's blood to defeat his opponent instantaneously. He had never imagined that Jin Wuji would actually forfeit of his own volition. Seeing the friendly signal issued by his opponent, he nodded in response and said, "Thank you for the match. Anyone can make mistakes, so it'd be wise to forgive them if it was possible." Moreover, in the first place, the conflict between himself and Jin Wuji wasn't an irresolvable feud that could not be forgiven. Sure enough, another forfeit. Could it be that among the martial arts techniques that Ling Han has learned, there is one specifically geared to make his opponent forfeit? Ha 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 ha, if you are as talented as Ling Han and have also formed 4 flashes of sword chi, I could also declare forfeit in front of you. Pei, how could 4 flashes of sword chi be so easily formed? The spectators felt both astonished, because Ling Han actually advanced another step further, and numbed as they thought that this was only a natural course of events. After all, this scene had already played many times. Thankfully, Ling Han only had one last opponent remaining, and even if Qi Yongyi forfeited too, they only needed to experience a shock one last time. Good. Ling Dongxing gripped his hands into tight fists, slightly numb with excitement. His son was able to achieve such a feat. What else could he ask for? He recalled that when his son had declared that he would obtain the first place in the tournament 2 months ago, he felt absolutely incredulous. But what about now? The first place was so close at hand. Even if he knew that Qi Yongyi was very powerful, and the Son of Heaven Fist technique was equivalent to 4 flashes of sword chi, as well as that his cultivation level was far above Ling Han's own, he still could not help the wild hope bursting to life within him. What if his son really managed to do the impossible? First place. Since he had already come so far, then he should definitely aim for the first place. If he didn't even issue a challenge, he would definitely regret it for the rest of his life. The other stage masters were all engaged in battle, but there were already few spectators who were still watching these battles. Everyone was waiting with bated breath for Ling Han to recover and the last battle to take place. Was it Ling Han who would be able to create another miracle and become the greatest dark horse in this Diyuan tournament? Or would it be the 4th prince that would have the last laugh, completely leaving behind the title of second place? Ling Han had more than enough time to rest and recover, as there was no rule that specified that he had to issue a challenge after resting for half an hour. He would, of course, recover to his best condition before proceeding to challenge Qi Yongyi. Although even after a long time, Ling Han did not make any move to issue a challenge. None of the spectators rushed him into doing so, for they knew very well that only if Ling Han managed to recover to his best condition could he and the 4th prince offer the most wonderful, brilliant battle. After another hour passed, Ling Han finally stood. Here it comes! Here it comes! All of the spectators thought, immediately growing excited. 4th prince, let us battle. Ling Han jumped up onto the first tournament stage and issued a challenge to Qi Yongyi. Brother Ling, please. Qi Yongyi smiled, though he felt an urge to start cursing. After all the people before him had thrown their matches because there were 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind Ling Han. Should he throw his match or not? If he threw the match, then what? The first place of this Diyuan tournament was something that he had coveted for 3 years, and the Dark Moon Grass could help him to immediately step into Gushing Spring Tier. which would save him 2 or 3 years' time of cultivation at the very least. But if he didn't, then what? The others have all thrown their matches, and wasn't this not giving face to Ling Han? It'd be fine if it was anyone else, but Qi Yongyi had a grand ambition. He was someone who would become a famous lord, and a famous lord definitely should respect the wise and recruit talents from everywhere and anywhere, especially with a genius like Ling Han. To enter a conflict with him was naturally something very bad. So how could Qi Yongyi not be stuck in a dilemma? Finally, Qi Yongyi still decided to do his best. If worst comes to worst, after he had commissioned the concoction of alchemical pills from the dark moon grass, he'd give one to Ling Han. Please! Ling Han waved his sword, and 4 flashes of sword qi appeared. Qi Yongyi gave a loud shout and already started using the Son of Heaven fist technique. His movements were very large, as if a single punch would be able to shatter everything, even if it was a mountain that appeared in his way. What was even more terrifying was the fact that there were actually 3 layers of qi wrapped around his fists. Although the power of the nation could not simply be added onto it in a sum, but no matter how it was, its strength was still equivalent to 4 flashes of sword qi. All of the spectators gasped in shock. So it turned out that Qi Yongyi had not displayed his full abilities previously, and this was the true extent of the 4th prince's power. So powerful, how could Ling Han win against this? Even if his opponent was someone close to gushing spring tier and had not yet formed qi, he wouldn't be able to match Qi Yongyi either. Pung! 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 After repeated blows from heavy fists, Ling Han fell into a continuous retreat. However, even if he withstood this kind of attack, there was absolutely no harm done to his body. Body of dead tree. Ling Han was a bit stunned. If he didn't start bleeding, how was he supposed to circulate lone wolf's blood? He was about to faint. So it turned out that defenses that were too strong might not necessarily be a good thing, as it actually conflicted directly with him using lone wolf's blood. He shouted loudly and bit down on his tongue harshly. Immediately, a bitter taste flooded the inside of his mouth. He had finally started bleeding. Hong, the 4-5 elements origin nuclei in his body, immediately began rotating even faster, suddenly allowing his power to be raised to a new level. 9th layer of element gathering tier. The higher the cultivation level, the smaller the power upgrade from lone wolf's blood. However, this was already enough. Ling Han brandished his iron sword, using the shocking electricity sword arts to its full extent. Ding, 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 pung, 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 pung. The 2 fighters were embroiled in a fierce clash as they displayed their respective prowess as much as they liked. Gods, so it turns out that element gathering tier could actually be this powerful. I'm also in the 9th layer of element gathering tier, but if I were the one fighting, I'd probably be defeated within 3 moves. If you constantly compare yourself to others, you will only make yourself angry. A new generation is soon going to replace the old generation. We're all old already. This era belongs to the young generation. Quite a number of the clan heads from Grey Cloud Town were sighing tiredly. Some of them were 30 years old, 40 years old, or even 50 years old, and they were all stuck on the cultivation level of 9th layer of element gathering tier. Because they could not manage to break through even after a very long time, they improved their own origin power to its limits with constant practice. But when facing these 2 young talents, they could only sigh at their own inferiority. Chapter 76. Chapter 76. First place. Qi Yongyi was overwhelmed with shock. Initially, he had thought that he could disregard all the so-called geniuses in this Diyuan tournament. Even if he didn't do his best, he'd still be able to easily get the first place. Things had gone according to his plan. At least they had until he encountered the dark horse named Ling Han. Too strong. This time he had really tried his best, yet there still was no sign of him having the upper hand. How could he not be extremely astonished at this? Ling Han was only in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, and he was already powerful to this extent than when he reached the 7th layer and officially stepped into the late stage of element gathering tier. How powerful would he get? He couldn't be called a genius anymore. He was a monster. Even Feng Yan hadn't been as powerful as this 3 years ago, right? Qi Yong, Yi involuntarily thought. In the younger generation of Diyuan City, Qi Yong Yi was not the most talented one. That honor belonged to Feng Yan. 3 years ago, Feng Yan, with a cultivation level of the 9th layer of element gathering tier, ascended to the 1st place with an absolute dominance over Qi Yong Yi. And in the tournament before that, Feng Yan, with a cultivation level of the 4th layer of element gathering tier, managed to defeat many opponents in the 9th layer of element gathering tier to obtain the 1st place. Even after entering Huyang Academy, where geniuses of all kinds and varieties were gathered, the brilliance of Feng Yan did not decrease in the slightest. Last year, he had already broken through to Gushing Spring tier and won a place among the top 10 strongest elites of the academy. Qi Yong could only manage to admire and look up to this level of achievement. Now, Qi Yong finally managed to see another monster who could match Feng Yan, or was perhaps even more talented than the latter was. Because when Feng Yan had been in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, those of his opponents who were in the 9th layer were nowhere as strong as Qi Yong was currently. As he fiercely battled, Qi Yong thought that since Ling Han was so monstrously talented, he might as well help the latter establish a grand reputation and allow him to enter Huyang Academy with a glory that did not pale in comparison with Feng Yan. And by then, Feng Yan would definitely feel pressure, wouldn't he? Fine, then he will give face to Ling Han and do him a favor. Of course, if it wasn't for the fact that Ling Han was powerful enough, Qi Yong would definitely not deign to do this favor for Ling Han. But since Ling Han has now displayed power strong enough to match him, he'd be happy to do him this favor at such little cost to himself. After all, there was no idea what kind of heights this monster would reach in the future. He also had 3 black-grade alchemists as his support, so it wasn't a far-off dream for him to surpass Feng Yan in power. This was a character deserving of his investment. This kind of stake, he was willing to gamble on it. Haha, Brother Ling is indeed exceptional. I forfeit this battle. Qi Yong forfeited of his own volition. Ling Han gave a short laugh and said, "This battle could only be considered a draw." His strengths were the body of dead tree ability, defenses, and a terrifyingly rapid recovery speed, while his weakness lay in the fact that the 5-element origin nuclei exhausted his reserves of origin power too quickly. Thus, he truly could not say for sure that he could defeat Qi Yong. Thus a draw was the fairest judgment of their battle. Qi Yong gave a shake of his head and said, "You're only in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, and you're already able to match me. If I still insist on saying this was a draw, then my skin is really too thick." After speaking, he leaped onto the 2nd tournament stage voluntarily. Ling Han had reached the top. Hua! A clamor of shocked gasps and exclamations could be heard downstage. Although such a conclusion was not really that unpredictable, when they actually heard the 4th prince declare his own forfeit, there was still quite a number of spectators who felt that it was all unreal. 6 years ago, the most talented genius in Yuan City of the time had overcome all the difficulties in his way and courageously won the 1st place in the tournament with a mere cultivation level of the 4th layer of element gathering tier. And now, 6 years later, a similar giant dark horse once again appeared. Was the field of martial arts in Yuan City starting to flourish? Ling Han made no pretense of modesty, because he truly did need the prize rewarded to the 1st place winner of this tournament. Thus, he only raised his clasped hands in Qi Yong's direction, signifying that he would remember this favor, which he would repay tenfold in the future. At this point, there was only about half an hour left before sunset, and there remained only one tournament stage that was still battling. If the stage master won, then the heavy curtain would finally be drawn on this De Yuan tournament. If he did not, then there would have to be a bit more waiting before the end. However, there were no more surprises. Half an hour later, the rankings of the top 10 strongest was finally confirmed. First place, Ling Han. He really got the first place. Ling Dongxing kept mumbling. Excitement and disbelief were all over his face. His son, once a publicly acknowledged trash, actually would have the day when he would become the first-place winner in the De Yuan tournament. He finally let out a bout of uncontrollable laughter, overwhelmed with joy. The top 10 martial artists all descended from their respective tournament stages. After this, there would be a banquet held at the royal house of the De Yuan king to celebrate the success of the top 50 participants. Congratulations, Brother Ling. Congratulations. Qi Yongyi and the others all gathered around Ling Han to offer their congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Ling Han clasped his hands politely in response. Haha, later we definitely have to get ourselves thoroughly drunk. But of course. Let's go. Only the top 50 participants could attend the banquet. Their friends and family were not allowed to accompany them, so whether it was Ling Dongxing or Lu Yutong, neither could accompany Ling Han to the banquet. Very soon, Ling Han and the others arrived at the royal house of the De Yuan king. This was a colossal residence, at least 10 times bigger than the residence of the fourth prince. The embellishments and decorations within were all extremely extravagant and luxurious, causing quite a few young men who had come from some smaller towns to look around with gaping mouths, as if they were village boys who had managed to enter the imperial palace. The host of this banquet was the De Yuan king, and later on he would be directly presenting the top 10 with their respective prizes. However, the De Yuan king did not stay for too long. He was a powerful warrior of spiritual ocean tier, so he needed not put on any airs at all. He only needed to take a seat and he would naturally exude a terrifying aura, causing all the others to feel a kind of pressure. After he left, the atmosphere finally became lively. All of them were young people, so very quickly they found similar topics of conversation. Soon, they would all be heading to Huyang Academy, so naturally they all wanted to make more friends. That way, they would be able to look after each other at the academy. However, Ling Han was a bit agitated. He was waiting very impatiently for the presentation of the dark moon grass, a treasure that even powerful warriors of heaven tier would feel envy over. As long as it had not entered his pocket yet, there was no way for him to set his mind at ease. When he thought about it, it was actually quite funny for him to become this impatient with his temperament. After waiting for 2 hours, this banquet finally ended, and the prizes for the top 10 were all presented to their winners, contained in small boxes. Ling Han opened his box and took a look. Inside lay a herb that was about a foot long. Each of the leaves were crescent-shaped, and their color resembled darkened moonlight. It was indeed the dark moon grass. Ling Han let out a breath in relief. He was just about to take his leave, but Qi Yongyi and the others all came over to make small talk with him, so he couldn't leave just yet. It wasn't until about midnight that the guests finally departed, and Ling Han could finally return to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. The first thing he did was begin preparation to concoct an alchemical pill. Although the spatial pill was something that even powerful warriors of Heaven tier would feel envious over, it could still be taken by martial artists of Element Gathering tier. So strictly speaking, it was only a yellow, grade, mid-level alchemical pill. Ling Han, of course, was able to concoct it. He had already long since prepared all the other ingredients necessary. The only thing missing was the main ingredient, dark moon grass. Since everything was ready now, he immediately began to concoct the pill. Now that he was in Element Gathering tier, concoction of a yellow grade, mid-level alchemical pill was naturally a piece of cake. After only half an hour, he had successfully concocted the spatial pill. Unfortunately, there was only one. Without any hesitation, He immediately swallowed the spatial pill. He promptly sat down and waited quietly for the pill to take effect. Very quickly there occurred a tremendous change within his body. It was as if his dantian had become an ocean where raging waves were surging. Each time the waves crashed, the space within his dantian would enlarge by a little bit. Chapter 77. Chapter 77. 100 times. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. The space within Ling Han's dantian continuously enlarged at a shockingly rapid pace. He felt as if his body was about to burst. But in truth, the dantian was a small world. Even if it became larger than this whole planet, no physical changes would appear on him. Ling Han, with the help of the medicinal effects from the spatial pill, stimulated the continued expansion of his dantian. At this point, every bit of increase could only be beneficial. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. Ling Han was overwhelmed with astonishment and joy, for there was still a large amount of medicinal effects that had not yet been expended. So to what extent would this allow his dantian to expand? But when he thought longer about it, this was only normal. This was an alchemical pill that would cause even powerful warriors of Heaven tier to be moved, and now it was actually taken by him, a lowly martial artist of element gathering tier. So how awesome would the effects be? Unfortunately, the people now actually don't recognize the kind of priceless treasure that was the dark moon grass, and extravagantly use it to break through to gushing spring tier. What a waste! Unfortunately, a martial artist could only take a single spatial pill once in his lifetime. If he took another, there would be no effects at all. If it had not been for this, Ling Han believed he would be able to get his hands on more dark moon grass. However, on the other hand, for most people, the spatial pill was not very valuable because rarely would they battle until the point that their origin power was completely exhausted. The increase of space within the dantian only improved the martial artist's ability to battle longer. There was no change in the amount of power behind each attack. But for a minority of geniuses, this was an extremely valuable item, as they would often battle until the point where they had no way out. So the larger the space within their dantian, the longer they would be able to continue battling, and on many occasions, this would be a lifesaver for them. Ling Han was, of course, even more pleased. He possessed the 5-element origin nuclei, and previously, the space within his dantian was really too tiny. There was completely too little origin power for his use. 80 times, 90 times, 100 times, and finally, all the medicinal effects of the spatial pill were exhausted. Ling Han finally opened his eyes. Expanded by 100 times. If this spatial pill was swallowed by a powerful warrior of Heaven tier, the space within the dantian would only expand by 1%. However, even this single percent would be larger by 100 times than his own expansion of 100 times. There was absolutely no comparison between the two. It was not because the spatial pill was not awesome enough, but because his current cultivation level was really too low. However, with every future increase in his cultivation level, the degree of expansion of the space within his dantian would also be much higher than others, though it would become gradually less and less, until the point where it would only be an expansion by 1% when he reached Heaven tier. As a result, there was no loss in him taking the pill so early on. Instead, the earlier he took it, the earlier he could make use of it. The benefits of the spatial pill could last from element gathering tier all the way to Heaven tier, or even until shattering void tier in future. He did not immediately stand up. Instead, he stimulated the 5 elements mix chaos lotus to continuously absorb spiritual chi, which would be transformed into his own origin power within his dantian, building up his reserves. Though the space within his dantian was now extremely large, the 5 elements mix chaos lotus was too mighty, and together with the 5 elements heaven grade skill, absorbing and refining spiritual chi was done at an excessively rapid pace. Only 1 night had passed, yet he had managed to fill the colossal space within his dantian completely. This also meant that in the future, if he battled to the point of exhaustion, he would require at least one night to recover to his prime condition if he did not take any alchemical pills to accelerate his recovery. Although he had not slept at all the night before, Ling Han still felt very energetic. After reaching element gathering tier, cultivation would be able to replace sleep to a limited extent. Moreover, he had only stayed awake for a single night, so it really wasn't a big deal. "Honor, when do you plan to return to Gray Cloud Town?" Ling Dongxing asked him when he arrived at the external rooms to eat. Ling Han considered for a moment and said, "There is quite a number of people who have asked me to share a meal with them, and I can't really make excuses, so maybe after another 3 or 4 days." "Very well. Then you stay here for a few more days while I return first and prepare a celebratory feast for you," Ling Dongxing said, filled with excitement. He couldn't wait to let all the townspeople know that Ling Han had won the first place in this De Yuan tournament. "All right. Take care on your journey, father," Ling Han said with a smile. Ling Dongxing nodded. He did not worry about Ling Han because his son's prowess was already above his own. So even if he stayed behind, he couldn't protect Ling Han anyways. Moreover, he was still the clan head, and after being absent for so long, he had to return as soon as possible to take charge of things back home. After breakfast, Ling Dongxing set out to return to Gray Cloud Town, while Ling Han was dragged off by Qi Yongyi and the others to enjoy a meal here and have fun there. Because these people had all thrown their matches appropriately for him in the tournament, this was a favor, so Ling Han naturally could not be ungrateful. On the second day, Qi Yongyi invited Ling Han to have fun at the wrestling ring. What was so fun about the wrestling ring? Ling Han didn't understand, but could not resist Qi Yongyi's enthusiasm and so was dragged along by the latter there. It was also the place where the De Yuan tournament had been held a few days ago. At this moment, all the tournament stages had been dismantled, and there was only a single battle ongoing in such a wide area. 5 wrestlers were currently being surrounded in an attack by 13 demonic beasts. The battle was fierce and the scene was bloody, whereas the spectators that were watching kept releasing shouts of excitement. They are all prisoners awaiting their execution. Though the battles here are extremely dangerous, if they managed to win 10 times in a row, they would be pardoned and regain their freedom. "Qi Yongyi explained. Ling Han nodded. Majority of empires had this kind of system. After prisoners were sentenced to death, they could choose to enter a battle to the death in the wrestling ring and win for themselves the chance to continue living. Of course, majority of them died in their battles. The number of people who managed to win their own freedom could be counted on the fingers of a single hand. Good. All of the spectators shouted suddenly, because one of the prisoners had made a mistake and 3 demonic beasts had worked together and ripped off his arms. The agony caused him to continuously scream in pain. But his screams did not last too long, because soon after his throat was torn out and his flesh was divided amongst the starving demonic beasts. The spectators here have all come for this kind of death and this kind of bloody scenes. Seeing such a scene, some crazy woman even tore apart her shirt and shrieked in excitement, her breasts exposed and trembling in her emotional high. The remaining 4 did not show any sign of panic. Obviously, they have experienced such a thing many times, so they continued to rely on each other and only concentrated on the enemies right in front of them. Gambling is allowed here. Is Brother Ling interested? Qi Yongyi turned to him and asked. Ling Han shook his head in refusal. He had never had a liking for this kind of thing that used the lives of others for entertainment purposes. So Brother Ling does not like this kind of battles. To be honest, neither do I. But the battle after this would definitely be very exciting. Qi Yongyi said mysteriously. An elite of gushing spring tier who's a rapist. Who knows how many women have been ruined by his hand? But he is indeed very powerful. He has not died no matter what was done to him. Today it would be his 1000th battle, and if he wins it, that'd be 1000 wins for him. If he wins again, there would be no choice but to set him free. A prisoner of body refining tier would be set free after winning 10 times in a row. For element gathering tier, the condition was 100 wins, while for gushing spring tier, the condition was 1,000 wins. A spark of killing intent involuntarily flashed through Ling Han's eyes. Out of the types of people he hated the most, depraved lechers were in the top 3. Such scum should be directly killed without hesitation. There was no need to give them any sliver of a chance. Today, many of the spectators have come to watch this depraved lecher receive his just punishment, Qi Yongyi said. And for this reason, our royal house of the Yuan King has even assigned an elite to battle with him. There is absolutely no way we would allow him to avoid getting his just deserts. While they had been speaking, the battle had neared its conclusion. Surrounded and attacked by more than 10 demonic beasts, after 7 demonic beasts died, the 4 prisoners were mauled to death by the remaining beasts one by one, causing the spectators watching to cheer. Everyone, before the climax event on our agenda today, we would like to invite all of you to enjoy a little program. A host entered into the ring, raised his hand, and 2 iron fences on either side of the ring were raised. From behind both iron fences, an iron cage was respectively pushed out. One of the cages contained an extremely strong-looking mature wild wolf, while the other cage actually contained a little girl that could only be 5 or 6 years old at most. Ling Han suddenly stood, flames of rage bursting into life within him. Chapter 78. Chapter 78, Wild Girl. Everyone, a team of martial artists, entered the 7 Wind Mountains on a hunt a few days ago, and in the den of a fierce tiger, discovered this little girl. The strangest thing was, this little girl not only was not devoured by the fierce tiger, but had even been living with it for quite a few years. She should have been abandoned as an infant in the wild, and was brought back by the tiger to its den. The host introduced the little girl's background, pointing at her. She might look small, but she is exceptionally strong. She's also very violent, does not know how to speak, and nor does she know how to walk on 2 legs. Her behavior is every bit like that of a wild beast. And now, let us all watch her performance in a battle with this wild wolf. All the spectators turned their attention to the little girl. The girl had a head of unkempt hair, and her whole body was filthy, covered with dust and dirt. Overall, she had a very bedraggled appearance and a very thin figure. Compared against that wild wolf, it was practically like comparing an infant with an adult. How was she supposed to battle against an opponent like that? The only end result would be being killed without mercy. Qi Yongyi had also risen to his feet, a displeased expression on his face. This was too much to actually use such a small child to entertain the audience. They were completely without any conscience. Xiao! Ling Han jumped into the wrestling ring and said, "Release this child." Hey, don't you know the rules? This is the property of the Yuan King. How dare you come here to make trouble? The host was at first stunned, before becoming extremely angry. But soon after, he was again stunned, and pointing at Ling Han, he exclaimed, You're the champion of this year's Yuan tournament." After he managed to recognize Ling Han, he dared not be too rash and explained, "Young Masterling, this is the rule of the wrestling ring. Those who enter the wrestling ring can only battle. There is no difference between male or female, old or young. Then let me ask you, has she willingly entered the battles in the wrestling ring? Or what crime has she committed that she has no choice but to battle?" Ling Han asked. The host was instantly lost for words. In this world where only the strong would be respected, a wild girl would of course not engender anyone's attention. So what if she was sent to battle in the wrestling ring? Who would care? Who would mind? With this question from Ling Han, the host had no idea how he was supposed to answer. Set her free! Qi Yongyi had also leaped into the ring and coldly commanded the host. Yes, 4th Prince. The host hurriedly assented. This was a man who may very possibly inherit the position of the Yuan king. Naturally, no one would dare to disregard the words of Qi Yongyi. Of course, he dared not release any prisoners, even if it was the command of the fourth prince. However, even if she was released, this wild girl would at most not have any identification papers and could be taken by anyone as a slave. Even if she was released, it wasn't a big deal. He ordered for the cage to be unlocked, and the little girl immediately pounced out like a cheetah. She was extremely strong, and the impact from her pouncing actually knocked down one of the workers in body refining tier. She had completely taken herself to be a wild beast. His small mouth opened, revealing 2 pairs of eerie, snow-white teeth, aiming a bite at that man's throat. This was completely the attack style of a fierce tiger, biting down on the throat to cut off the air supply of its prey. Ling Han quickly acted. He took hold of the little girl's neck, but the little girl instantly swiped her claws at Ling Han without any hesitation. Chila! His sleeve was ripped open, a white mark left on Ling Han's forearm. However, he had already learned the body of dead tree ability, so while the wild girl's claws were sharp, they only managed to leave behind a few white marks on his arm. Who? The wild girl bared her white teeth at Ling Han, as if she was a fierce beast caught in a trap, looking very irritable. Ling Han looked slightly surprised because he was in the element gathering tier and possessed extremely powerful strength. Yet if he had not gripped tightly enough and held on, this wild little girl may have successfully struggled free from his grasp. But this wild little girl was only 5 or 6 years old, so she definitely should not have awakened her spirit base yet. How then was it possible that she possessed such powerful strength? Out of curiosity, Ling Han used his consciousness to scan over her and discovered there was actually origin power in the blood and flesh of the little girl. Unexpectedly, she really was a martial artist and was in about the 3rd layer of body refining tier. How was this possible? After a martial artist had awakened their spirit base, he could, with a cultivation technique, begin cultivation, absorbing spiritual qi and transforming it into origin power to refine his own blood, flesh, and bones. This was the body refining tier. Each martial artist cultivated with a cultivation technique, so naturally there would be signs of the circulation paths of his origin power left behind on the martial artist's body in accordance with the cultivation technique he was practicing. That was why a martial artist with a higher cultivation level was able to identify his opponent's cultivation level based on his circulation paths. That was also why no one had discovered that this wild little girl had the ability of the 3rd layer of body refining tier, because there was no sign that she had cultivated before. Ling Han was different. He still possessed a sliver of the consciousness of heaven tier, and so managed to see through to the girl's essence. Could this little girl actually have a special constitution? But he had only heard of special constitutions being able to improve the owner's battle prowess, and had never heard that there was a special constitution that would aid the owner's cultivation. But if this little girl was not the descendant of those powerful races, then why had the fierce tiger adopted her? Moreover, she managed to form her own origin power without practicing any kind of cultivation technique. This was illogical no matter what, and the only explanation was that she had some kind of special constitution. True, there were so many different kinds of special constitutions in this world. How could he manage to comprehend all of them? Ling Han's expression remained unchanged. He turned and said to Qi Yongyi, "I'll bring this little girl back first and give her a good cleaning. You're not going to watch the upcoming battle?" Qi Yongyi asked strangely. The battle of a martial artist in gushing spring tier did not come around every day, and to those at the peak of element gathering tier, watching this kind of battle would somewhat help them in their attempt to break through to gushing spring tier. No, Ling Han shook his head. For him, comprehension of the different tiers was something that he had absolutely no need of. He brought the wild little girl back to Heaven's medicine pavilion. The girl was extremely violent. She kept trying to find chances to bite him or scratch him. so Ling Han did not dare to be too careless. After all, the little girl's teeth were really powerful. If bitten, even he would feel a little pain. One has to know that he has already learned the body of dead tree ability. Any ordinary attack not only would not be able to injure him, he wouldn't feel any bit of pain from it. He had possibly picked up a valuable treasure. Ling Han brought the little girl back to Heaven's medicine pavilion. Lu Yutong had not gone with him, as she had been making the final bit of accumulation, preparing to break through to gushing spring tear. She had just walked out, and seeing the dirty little child hanging from his hand, she could not help but be surprised. "It's good that you're here. Give this little girl a bath while I go out and buy her some clothing." Ling Han threw the wild little girl to her. "But you have to be careful. This little girl is quite strong and has very sharp teeth. If you're bitten, you'll definitely bleed." Lu Yutong's face was filled with shock. She was in the 9th layer of element gathering tier and long past body refining tier, so all the muscles in her body had been refined and became extremely tough. Only sharp weapons should be able to injure her, but now a little girl's bite could actually cause her to bleed too. But Ling Han was definitely not the type to speak nonsense, so she still very carefully took hold of the wild little girl. Ling Han went out and bought some children's clothing. By the time he returned, the wild little girl had completely changed. She was now like a lotus flower emerging from clear water. Definitely a beauty in the bud. But the little girl was currently completely wrapped up in bed sheets, tied with a rope. This was not something that the strength of the 3rd layer of body refining tier could break out of, so she looked very funny. Though the little girl's appearance has completely changed and was given a gorgeous transformation, there was absolutely no decrease in her ferocity. She had still her small mouth open, growling in a low voice at Lu Yutong. Chapter 79. Chapter 79. A slip of the tongue after drinking. "You really weren't kidding. This little girl's teeth are really powerful." Lu Yutong raised her left arm. Bandages were wrapped around her palm and elbow. Obviously, she had been bitten. Previously, even Ling Han had been bitten when he let his guard down, proving that this little girl was really very good at sneak attacks. More importantly, you simply wouldn't believe how fierce her teeth were unless you experienced it with your own body. This girl was definitely born in the year of the dog. Ling Han shook his head. "She's much more powerful than a dog. She's definitely born in the year of the tiger." Lu Yutong had already experienced some hardship and shook her head with lingering fear. The first time she was bitten was indeed due to her carelessness, but she had still been bitten a second time, even though she had had her guard up, proving how scary this wild little girl was. Of course, this was also because she had not thought of harming the wild girl. Otherwise, no matter how sharp her teeth was, Lu Yutong would have easily killed her with one swat. "Where did she come from?" Lu Yutong asked curiously. "She had been living in the wild, raised by a tiger. I don't know anything else besides that." Ling Han bent down in front of the wild little girl, his hand extended to tease her. "Little girl, you probably don't have a name, so I'll have to give you one." Who? The wild little girl kept opening and closing her mouth, her teeth clicking noisily together, as she chased after Ling Han's finger for a bite. "You were raised by a tiger, so we'll call you Hunyo then," Ling Han said with a smile, then turned to Lu Yutong and asked, "Is there something like a birthmark on her? With that, we'll be able to help her find her real parents in the future." "There is one." Lu Yutong nodded. "There was a very strange mark on her ankle, though I can't tell if she was born with it or someone had marked her after her birth." Ling Han lifted the covers to take a look, and there was indeed a mark on the little girl's left ankle. It was about the size of a copper coin, with a very complicated pattern. He really could not tell what the pattern meant. Theoretically, such a complicated marking should have been branded after her birth, but there was absolutely no sign of any such branding, so it looked as if she had been born with it. It was really very odd. "What do you plan for Hunyo?" Lu Yutong asked. She had already started feeling affection for this little girl. This little girl only thinks that she is a wild beast. If you don't plan well enough, she will definitely get into trouble. Ling Han nodded and said, "Let's have her follow us first. Wait until she regains her human intelligence before we decide the next step." Hunyo did not think that she was a human being at all. She was like a wild cat or a tiger cub. They helped her put on some clothing, but she immediately ripped the clothes off her. If they did not tie her up, she would definitely be even more nimble than a monkey. What was even more of a headache for Ling Han was the fact that she did not eat cooked meat. Whether it was grilled or boiled meat, she would not touch a single bite of it if it was put in front of her. Instead, her eyes would fix upon Ling Han's neck, killing intent brimming within her eyes. Obviously, she would be happier to have Ling Han as her feast. To remove her wild nature, the first step was to change her eating habits. Ling Han took a bite of the grilled meat in front of the little girl, then put the grilled meat back down in front of her, then stepped back. Hunyo kept holding herself back from making any moves, but after half a day her stomach grumbled, and her eyes had become even fiercer. Still, she did not make a move to eat the meat until it was about midnight, and she finally could bear it no longer. She squirmed a bit, and finally took and began to eat the grilled meat. Both her hands and feet were tied, so she could only wriggle forward like a worm. Her appetite was terrifyingly large. She quickly finished off such a huge pork leg. The little girl licked her lips as if she had not eaten enough. The expression on her face was very strange, because she had never eaten such delicious meat. On the second day, Ling Han continued to attend various social gatherings, and on the fourth day, Li Hao and his other old friends finally found the opportunity to meet him. "I never thought that you would actually manage to get the first place." "Yeah, you are really impressive. Too amazing." "I am more envious of Li Hao. He's going to enter into Huyang Academy very soon, and Big Brother Ling will take care of him there. So there's no fear that he's going to be bullied in an unfamiliar place." Lu Dong and the others talked in succession as they continued to fill his cup with wine, rejecting his own attempts to reciprocate the gesture. Due to their inferior status, they could only wait until the majority of the others had dispersed before they dared to come meet with Ling Han. Today, they naturally came with the intent to get Ling Han drunk. However, when they had about reached half a round of drinks, Chen Pengju revealed a face filled with hesitation. After a long while, he finally spoke. "I may have caused a huge disaster." "What's the matter?" everyone else asked. Chen Pengju clenched his teeth and said, "When we returned from the Balance Mountains, I shared a drink with one of my clansmen. I drank a bit too much, and it seems like I accidentally spoke about the incident with Hang Zhan." "What?" Li Hao and the other four immediately stood, their faces instantly paling. Hang Zhan was the grandson of the 7th elder of Stonewolf Gate, and recently people from the Stonewolf Gate have all been searching for his killer. If the information was leaked out, then that 7th elder from Stonewolf Gate would definitely come running. A powerful warrior of gushing spring tear. Ling Han did not take it to heart too much. He too had the assistance of warriors of gushing spring tear, and the Stonewolf Gate should know that there stood 3 black-grade alchemists behind him, so they definitely would not dare to be rash. Perhaps only that 7th elder may possibly go on a mad rampage. After all, his flesh and blood grandson had died, so it depended on his temper. If he was the fiery, short-tempered type, then it was indeed possible that he would make a murderous charge towards Ling Han. "So did you say something or not?" Lu Dong asked anxiously. Gua Rock Town fell within the area under the jurisdiction of the Stonewolf Gate, and the 7th elder had just cause on his side, vengeance for his grandson. So even if he massacred their clans, the most that a Yuan king would do was to verbally reprimand him. After all, this was a world where the strongest was respected. "I really can't remember. I really drank too much that day," Chen Pengju said, scowling miserably. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, If that person from the Stone Wolf Gate really went charging to your clans, then just be honest and tell him to come look for me. No, big brother Ling, we will definitely not betray you. That's right. How could we be so disloyal? Lu Dong and the others all shook their heads in refusal. But were their words true? And how many of them were actually speaking truthfully? That was another matter entirely. Ling Han smiled and said, "There's no harm, this is the truth anyways. Moreover, I have the ability to protect myself, so I do not fear that seventh elder. But for you guys, I can't guarantee your safety. So listen to me and tell the truth." Seeing Ling Han insist so strongly, Lu Dong and the rest could only nod their heads in agreement, while hoping Chen Pengju's tongue had not slipped after drinking. If that was the case, then all would be well. With such a heavy worry weighing down on their hearts, the atmosphere obviously became very stifling. So very soon, the gathering concluded and everyone returned to their own respective homes. When Ling Han returned to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, he saw Lu Yutong was teaching who knew how to speak. However, the wild girl was still very violent. She did not pay any attention to Lu Yutong's attempts and only kept baring her teeth and snarling, looking very much like a little tiger. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "You have to take advantage of her weakness. Doesn't the little girl like to eat? So you can just use food as a reward. If she performs well, give it to her, making her slowly learn to obey you." Lu Yutong rolled her eyes at him and said in annoyance, "You really think it's like raising a kitten or a puppy? This girl is much fiercer than any kitten or puppy." Ling Han said with a click of his tongue. He stretched out a hand to touch Hunyo's head, and the girl immediately tried to bite him, but thankfully he managed to pull his hand back in time. "Ko, ko, ko!" A series of knocks was heard from the door. Ling Han and Lu Yutong both turned around to see an alchemist apprentice standing at the doorway, who said, "Young Master Ling, there arrived someone who claims he is from the Ling clan of Grey Cloud Town outside. He says he has some urgent matter and wishes to meet you." Oh! Ling Han walked out. What could it be? His father had just returned, so logically there shouldn't be any big issues, right? Could it be the seventh elder of Stone Wolf Gate? Alarm rose in his heart, and he immediately quickened his walk into a run. Seeing this, Lu Yutong left Hunyo behind and quickly followed after. Chapter 80. Chapter 80. Comeback of the Chung clan. Time slowly turned back to a few days ago. Grey Cloud Town, Chung clan residence. An extremely powerful aura suddenly spread out from the deepest parts of the Chung clan residence. It was a very terrifying aura, so much that an intense feeling of fear rose within the heart of even an elite in the 9th layer of element gathering tier like Chung Wen Kuan. Yet Chung Wen Kuan did not feel anxious at all. Instead, an overjoyed expression appeared on his face, and he actually started to wave his hands and dance around. "Third uncle has broken through! Ha ha ha! Third uncle has broken through! Ling clan, you people were so arrogant before, but you would never have thought that my third uncle has been in seclusion all this while breaking through to gushing spring tear." His expression turned grim all of a sudden, and he declared, "From now onwards, there will be no more Ling clan in Grey Cloud Town." Ha 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 ha. A bout of loud laughter was heard, and a thin old man was taking big strides into the main hall. Waves of terrifying power continuously spread out from his body as he approached. This was because he had just broken through, and so had not yet managed to completely control his own power. He was Chung Wen Kuan's third uncle, Chung Jiyu, a martial arts maniac. He was already acclaimed as the top elite martial artist of the whole Chung clan years ago, yet did not have much interest in having power over the clan. Instead, he had kept himself in seclusion to break through to gushing spring tear. Even in their own Chung clan, many clansmen had all thought that he had long since died. And his hard work had paid off, for he had successfully broken through to gushing spring tear. This was the strongest level of existence in the whole of Grey Cloud Town, more than enough to sweep away all opponents with his overwhelming might. "Greetings, third uncle. Congratulations, third uncle." Chiang Wen-kun half knelt on the ground, his face filled with overwhelming joy. "And rise." Cheng Ji Yu raised his hand. His eyes turned away from Chiang Wen-kun, and he said, "Call Xiao Yuan and the others back. I have not seen them for quite a few years." "Third uncle, Xiao Yuan, he's dead," Chiang Wen-kun said, choking with grief. "What?" Cheng Ji Yu suddenly slammed a hand onto the table. Pang! This table made of excellent sandalwood instantly turned into broken pieces. His furious eyes widened, and he said, "Who has killed my grandson?" Qing Xiaoyuan was Cheng Ji Yu's direct grandson. He had also inherited the latter's talent, and as a result, was taken in as a disciple by the Stone Wolf sect. Not even Cheng Hao or Cheng Xiang had this kind of talent. That little bastard from the Ling clan, Ling Han. Chiang Wen-kun immediately said, "Pa." Cheng Ji Yu's hand rose and fell quickly, giving Chiang Wen-kun a slap. He sneered, "Then what are you doing, still sitting here? Why did you not come see me with the head of that little bastard?" Chiang Wen-kun did not dare to have any feelings of anger. In front of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear, he wouldn't be able to raise even a single finger. He quickly knelt and said, "How could I not want to avenge Xiao Yuan? It's just that there is an elder from Stone Wolf sect supporting him. I can't touch him." An elder from Stone Wolf sect? Cheng Ji Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. All the elders of Stone Wolf sect were in gushing spring tear, while he himself had just broken through to this tier. Whoever that elder was, it was impossible he would be able to match him in a battle. But very quickly he gave a humph and said, "At most, that little bastard must have curried a bit of favor with that elder. Even if I killed him, that elder would never think of declaring a blood feud with me. Let's go. Come with me, and we will immediately charge towards the Ling clan residence. Since he dared to kill my grandson, then I will slaughter every clansman of the Ling clan in exchange." Chiang Wen-kun was of course overjoyed. He had been afraid that Cheng Ji would fall back, but thanks to the death of Cheng Xiaoyuan, Cheng Ji was overwhelmed with rage, so much that he had no fear for even an elder of Stone Wolf sect. Practically the whole Cheng clan moved out, all of them bursting with killing intent as they made their way to the Ling clan residence. Moving so pompously through the streets, of course, attracted the attention of the smaller clans in the town, as they all came out to observe the spectacle. What's the matter with the Cheng clan? Could they be about to start a war with one of the clans? Aside from the Ling clan, what other clan is worthy of such a big movement from the Cheng clan? That can't be true, can it? The power of the Ling clan is practically equal to the power of the Cheng clan, and if a war sparks up between these two great clans, both sides would only suffer. The Cheng clan couldn't be so foolish, right? No. Don't you guys know that the Cheng clan is not having a good time lately? I heard that their main source of income has received an all-out suppression from the Ling clan, and now they can't even afford to pay the salaries of their servants. Yes. I heard about that too. Lately, many of the servants and guards of Cheng clan have all secretly ran off. Are they in such a terrible condition? Then no wonder the Cheng clan is going all out now. Otherwise, they'd be wiped out by the Ling clan in the future. At least, if they made a gamble now, there could be a chance of victory for them. Chiang Wen-kun heard the discussions from around him, and could not stop a cold smile from appearing on his face. Going all out? How could that be? They now had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear fighting on their side, and they were going to wipe out the Ling clan. Going all out? Only the Ling clan needed to do that, but it would all be pointless effort. One finger of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear would be enough to suppress all resistance. The Cheng clan advanced like a great flood while the townspeople followed behind them to watch the ensuing show. This was a great battle between the two great clans. If any one of them missed it, They'd definitely regret it for life. Very quickly, they set out from the town's east side and arrived at the west side, which was where the Ling clan residence was located. With such a big commotion, it of course caused a disturbance within the Ling clan. Ling Dongxing had just returned, and he immediately stepped out, with his clansmen behind him. Ling clan head, long time no see. Chang Wen Kuan raised a hand, and all the clansmen of the Chung clan halted their steps. He smiled at Ling Dongxing, his face filled with smugness because very soon this old rival of his would be kneeling down in submission in front of him. Ling Dongxing frowned. They had obviously come with bad intentions. He raised his voice and said, "Brother Chung has brought so many people here. Are you here to make a demonstration?" Ha 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 ha. Chung Wen Kuan laughed loudly before suddenly stopping. He said in a deep voice, "That's right. I'm here today to make a demonstration." Ling Dongxing, immediately order the members of your clan to surrender, and I can consider killing a few people less. Chang Wen Kuan, have you gone mad? Ling Dongxing asked coldly. This was a humongous joke. You think I'm joking with you? Chang Wen Kuan laughed coldly. Are you not? Ling Dongxing asked back. Of course not. A cold voice declared. An old man with a tall, thin figure left the ranks of the Chung clan and passed Chang Wen Kuan by, his face filled with killing intent. Who's this old man? Those who had gathered around to watch the spectacle were all curious about the identity of this mysterious old man. Was there such a person in the Chung clan? It looks like his status is not beneath Chang Wen Kuan's. I've got it, he's Cheng Jiyu. An old man suddenly gasped in surprise. Everyone said that he has long died. I never thought he's actually still alive. Ling Dongxing, of course, recognized Cheng Jiyu, though the latter now looked much older than he had last seen him. He raised his clasped hands in Cheng Jiyu's direction as a sign of respect to someone from the generation before his. But the issue now concerned the pride of the two clans, so naturally he would not give in easily. He said, "If the Chung clan insists on battle, there is no member of the Ling clan that is afraid of death." "Han, you think you're worthy of standing as an equal with my Chung clan?" Cheng Jiyu stretched out a hand and pressed down on Ling Dongxing. "I'll put you down first." "You've gone too far." Ling Dongxing raised his palms in a counterattack. He had been praised as the top genius in the whole of Grey Cloud Town in the past, and so of course possessed exceptional power. As his palms moved, more than 10 images of palm strikes could be seen, and the attacks were extremely fast. How could a firefly be worthy of competing with the moon over which is brighter? Cheng Ji used finger extended, and there actually appeared a gigantic palm about the size of a millstone which pressed down on Ling Dongxing. Origin power given form, gushing spring tear. Ling Dongxing gasped in shock, his face immediately turning pale. He finally understood where the Chung clan got such confidence from. Cheng Ji, you had actually broken through to gushing spring tear. Chapter 81. Chapter 81. The Great Calamity of the Ling clan. The gigantic hand made of origin power clapped down, and sure enough, it completely suppressed Ling Dongxing and even sealed his dantian. The current Ling Dongxing was now no stronger than any ordinary person. Ha 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 ha. Chang Wen Kuan laughed loudly. He felt very well. He was extremely delighted at this long-awaited scene. From the moment he had awakened his spirit base and began his path of cultivation, he had always been compared with Ling Dongxing. But Ling Dongxing's prowess had always exceeded his own, and he could only be considered the second best. Fortunately, Ling Dongxing had never managed to break through to gushing spring tear, which gave him a faint ray of hope. And now such a close rival that had always been weighing him down was actually so easily suppressed. How could he not be ecstatic at this? But at the same time, he was also extremely shocked. Gushing spring tear was really too powerful. Cheng Jiyu had just barely broken through, and Ling Dongxing was practically defenseless against him. Take all of them down. Whoever dares to resist, kill them with no exceptions. He commanded coldly, and with a wave of his hand, all the martial artists of the Chung clan behind him charged towards the Ling clan, moving forwards in a very imposing manner. On the other hand, the Ling clan, due to the suppression of their clan head, as well as the fact that the opposing party had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear on their side, suffered a drastic decrease in their morale, so they couldn't put up any efficient resistance. There were a few clansmen in element gathering tier who had attempted to flee, yet all of them were chased down by Cheng Jiu, and with a palm strike they were all beaten half to death. I never thought that the Chung clan actually still had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear as their trump card. He should have just broken through recently, otherwise they wouldn't have waited until now to make their comeback. The saying that every dog has its day is really true. Who would have thought that the Chung clan would actually be able to make a gigantic comeback out of nowhere precisely when they were forced into such dire straits? According to the temperament of the clansmen of the Chung clan, I'm afraid that no one from the Ling clan would be able to escape with their lives. The Chung clan will be in charge of the town in the future, and our days probably wouldn't be easy after this. All of the spectators were astonished at the might of Cheng Jiu, but could also not help sighing and shaking their heads. All of the people of the Chung clan were arrogant and overbearing, and in the future, where their clan was the one in charge, the townspeople would probably be having hard times ahead of them. Less than half an hour later, all of the clansmen of the Ling clan were practically taken down. There were only a mere several clansmen who had businesses outside of the Ling clan main residence that had fortunately escaped this calamity temporarily. Where is Ling Han? Cheng Jiu approached Ling Dongxing, killing intent brimming in his eyes. He had commanded the others to search for Ling Han, yet the latter could not be found anywhere in the Ling clan residence. Ha 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 ha. Ling Dongxing laughed loudly. My son has already been taken as a disciple by the Huyang Academy. If you people dare to touch a single hair on his head, that would be equivalent to declaring war on the imperial family of Rain Country. Chang Wen-Kuan walked over and said, That trash son of yours entering Huyang Academy? Who are you trying to fool? Ling Dongxing spat and said, My son not only is going to enter Huyang Academy, he's also the first-place champion of this time's Deyuan tournament. In future, he'd at least manage to break through to spiritual ocean tier, so just wait. Nonsense. Cheng Wen-Kuan scoffed. That trash son of yours dreams of taking the first place in Deyuan tournament? Ling Dongxing, you really like to indulge in fantasies to actually use such a hilarious story to attempt to fool us. Actually, if he had said that Ling Han was able to enter into Huyang Academy, Cheng Wen-Kuan would still have believed him. After all, Qing Xiaoyuan was defeated by Ling Han, but now he's saying that Ling Han got the first place? What a gigantic joke. This time's Deyuan tournament was the gathering place of geniuses. There were powerful warriors from the previous Deyuan tournament, like the Fourth Prince and Jin Wuji, as well as new talents like Bailey Tingyun and Xia Zhongguang. How could Ling Han be able to win? So what if he has been accepted by the Huyang Academy? As long as he has not stepped into the Huyang Academy, he cannot be considered as a disciple of Huyang Academy. Cheng Wen-Kuan's killing intent soared. And then he spoke to Cheng Jiu, third uncle. Why don't we hang them all up at the entrance to the town and wait until Ling Han, that little beast, returns, then kill all of them? Very well, we'll do that. I want to scoop out the heart and dig out the lungs of that little bastard, Ling Han, in front of him and make him also have a taste of losing his own flesh and blood. Cheng Ji, you coldly humphed. We only need to leave about 10 plus of them alive. As for the others, kill them all. Cheng Wen-Kuan said deeply. Cheng Wen-Kuan, you dare! Ling Dongxing roared. The clansmen of the Ling clan alone numbered a few hundred, and added with their servants and guards, those that did not share their surname, the total reached over 1,000. and now only about 10 plus would be left alive, so how many people would be killed? Why do I not dare? Chung Wen-kuin laughed coldly. This was establishing the might of the Chung clan, sacrificing the lives of the clansmen of the Ling clan to let the townspeople of Grey Cloud Town know that this would be the inevitable result when opposing their Chung clan. Kill them! He shouted loudly. Pooh! Pew! Pew! One by one, their heads were chopped off with no exceptions. It was a complete bloodbath, and corpses lay everywhere. Not every clansman of the Ling clan was unafraid of death. Many of them had begged for mercy, but it was pointless. The Chung clan was determined to wipe the Ling clan out of existence, and had absolutely no intention to accept surrender. There was only slaughter, which transformed the whole Ling clan residence into a realm of death. When Ling Dongxing watched all this happen before his eyes, he felt like it was him that was being torn apart. All of these people were his clansmen, and as the clan head, how could his heart not be bleeding at this horrific scene? But he was still more worried about his son. If Ling Han returned, what if he fell into the hands of the Chung clan? Though Ling Han had an affable relationship with quite a few black-grade alchemists, the problem was, would the Chung clan believe him? Moreover, the news that Ling Han had won the first-place champion of the Yuan tournament had not yet spread to these parts, so the Chung clan would naturally not have any worries about attacking his son. If his son died, then even if he himself died, how could he bear to face his wife? His heart was burning with anxiety, yet there was nothing he could do. The remaining 10-plus survivors of the Ling clan were dragged to the east entrance of the town, where 10-plus short wooden pillars had been set up. Ling Dongxing and the others all had their dantian sealed, and all of them were forced to kneel on the ground, their hands and feet tied to the wooden pillars. Woo, 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 big brother de Xiong. Ling Zixian wept bitterly. She was one of the few survivors, yet maybe not one of the fortunate. Pa! One of the clansmen of the Chung clan gave her a slap and shouted, "Stop crying!" Yet Ling Zixian wept even louder, enraging him, and he quickly drew the saber at his waist. Forget it, forget it! Someone persuaded him. Perhaps it was due to the fact that Ling Zixian was really too young, causing mercy to rise within him. Just let her cry as much as she likes. We can use that as a show of deterrence. This is the fate that awaits anyone who dares to oppose our Chung clan. What clan head? You're still trampled under my feet now. One of them stepped on Ling Dongxing's head. He even deliberately smeared the dirt on his shoe onto Ling Dongxing's face, causing Ling Dongxing to tremble with rage. Ha ha ha! So what if you're in the 9th layer of element gathering tier? Now even a mere 6th layer of body refining tier can easily trample on you. Ling clan is finished. Now, the Grey Cloud Town belongs to our Chung clan. The night passed. The 10-plus remaining survivors of the Ling clan were all shivering as they suffered from the cold, so much that even ice had formed on their hair ends. Moreover, after nearly a day without any food or water, their stomachs were all rumbling with hunger. Chung Wen-kuin appeared. He wanted to see as every bit of hope slowly disappeared from the eyes of his longtime rival, and finally see as he'd be flung into absolute despair after seeing his only son die in front of his very eyes. It would only be at that moment that he would kill Ling Dongxing and finally end the rivalry that had persisted between them for more than 30 years. Ling Dongxing, are you regretting it yet? He mocked and ridiculed. Only when he was satisfied would he leave, and the next day he would appear again punctually to continue making fun of this former rival of his. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Ling Dongxing and the others were all left barely alive. After a whole 3 days without any food, if they had not been fed water, they would definitely have died from dehydration. But they were currently extremely weak, so much that they didn't even have the energy to curse at their captors. Report! A man raced over. Half kneeling on the ground, he said, informing the clan head, "We've discovered signs of Ling Han. He's about 50 miles away from the town." Ha 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 ha. Chang Wen-kuin was stunned for a moment before laughing loudly. With a wave of his hand, he commanded, "Quickly go and fetch third uncle. He will soon be able to have his revenge." Chapter 82. Chapter 82. The Violent Fury of Ling Han. Ling Han raced out and very quickly arrived at the room the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion had arranged for receiving guests. This room would usually only be used by the bigger customers of Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, but because Ling Han's status was a bit unique, his visitor had also been brought here. He pushed the door open and entered, immediately asking, "What's happened at the clan?" There was a middle-aged man who had been continuously pacing to and fro inside, and when he saw Ling Han, he immediately rushed towards him like an arrow shot from a bow. "Uncle Yang Ping." Ling Han recognized his visitor. He was a member of one of the branch families of the Ling clan. "Young Master Han." Ling Yangping's fiery eyes immediately brimmed with tears as he spoke, his voice choking with insurmountable grief. "Our Ling clan has been destroyed by the Chung clan." "Chung clan." Ling Han said quickly, "Uncle Yangping, calm down first and slowly explain. What exactly happened?" Ling Yangping regained his composure a bit before he once again began to speak, though his hands were still shaking. "There's an ancient monster in the Chung clan called Chung Jiyu. Everyone said he'd already died long ago, but we never imagined that he had actually been in seclusion all this while. A few days ago, he broke through to Gushing Spring Tier. The moment he had broken through, he immediately led the Chung clan and charged towards our clan, killing almost every member of the clan. Kwang, this news was like a bolt out of the blue. All of a sudden, Ling Han could only feel his sight darken as he very nearly passed out from such a blow. Fortunately, Lu Yutong acted in time and held on to him in support. Otherwise, he'd definitely have fallen in a dead faint onto the ground. He forcibly calmed himself and asked, "What about my father?" Clan head was apprehended by Chung Jiyu and is now being tied up at the town entrance, left to suffer from the elements, baked by the sun, pounded by the rain, and freezing as the weather turns cold. Chung Jiyu has declared that he would kill you in front of our clan head when you return before killing all the other survivors." Ling Yangping raged. "I was off on an errand out of town when this happened, and thus fortunately escaped this disaster. Once I got news of it, I immediately rushed here. Young Master Han, you must not act rashly, or you would definitely fall into the trap laid by the Chung clan. They are currently waiting for you to come walking right into their trap." Ling Yangping was naturally filled with anxiety. From the moment he entered Diyuan City, he had already heard of how Ling Han had won the first place in this year's Diyuan tournament, defeating geniuses such as Fourth Prince and Jin Wuji. This meant that Ling Han's future was filled with unlimited possibilities. As long as he managed to survive to see the age of 30, he would definitely be able to become a powerful warrior of Gushing Spring Tier. He was of course afraid that Ling Han would act rashly. Ling Han was a young man after all, and young men were always impetuous and easily gave in to emotions. After finding out that his own father was currently being held captive, his first reaction would of course be to rescue him, without knowing that this would only cause him to lose his own life and bring a true end to the last hopes of the Ling clan. "I understand. Please don't worry, Uncle Yangping. I know my own limits." Once he found out his father had not died yet, Ling Han's heart calmed. Yet how could he just stay there without making any move at all? Forced to kneel at the town entrance, suffering all manner of hardship due to the weather, and watched by others like some kind of show, was this how a human being should be treated? Moreover, even if a martial artist of element gathering tier possessed a strong life force and vitality without food and water, he would not last much longer than a normal person. The maximum amount of time he would be able to hold on for would be 5 or 6 days, and then he'd definitely die. He had to act immediately. After calling Lu Yutong to accompany him, the two of them immediately set out, rushing back to Gray Cloud Town. Gushing Spring Tear. If his opponent had broken through to Gushing Spring Tear a long time ago and possessed the battle prowess of someone in the second or third layer of Gushing Spring Tear, then he may still feel afraid. But Cheng-Ji Yu had only just broken through. With his current prowess, he felt that there was no need to fear. Furthermore, the Black Tower in his Dantian afforded him a single chance to increase his cultivation level by a complete tier, allowing his cultivation level to instantly zoom up to the fourth layer of Gushing Spring Tear. Lu Yutong brought Hunyo with them, and the group of three, riding on 2 horses, raced back toward Gray Cloud Town. However, as she did not know that Ling Han possessed a blessing from the Black Tower, she naturally informed Zhu He-Xian and Zhang Weishan of the happenings in Gray Cloud Town. The 2 old men had been in the process of attempting to concoct the reverse pill. When he heard the news, Zhu He-Xian was instantly enraged. In his heart, he considered Ling Han to be half his master, and now his master's father was suffering such humiliation at the hands of his enemies, waiting to be killed. How could he not be furious? He was not the only one furious. Zhang Weishan was also extremely furious. He owed Ling Han a debt of gratitude and had been troubled about being unable to repay this debt. He had immediately set out together with Zhu He-Xian. These 2 black-grade alchemists immediately set off, and this piece of news, as if it had suddenly sprouted wings, spread to every corner of Diyuan City. What? Ling Han's father has been captured by the Chung clan, waiting to be executed together with Ling Han after the latter returns? What kind of clan is this Qing clan? They're really too bold, aren't they? The Chung clan is actually just a minor clan, and only recently did one of their clansmen break through to Gushing Spring Tear. Go, go, go. Immediately make arrangements to assist Ling Han in his rescue effort. This is a wonderful opportunity. We'd be able to form a friendly relationship with a future ruler. Ha ha ha! This is really a godsend of an opportunity. With barely sacrificing anything in return, we'd be able to form a good relationship with Ling Han. Immediately form a group and follow me to Gray Cloud Town. When all the great clans of the city heard the news, they were both shocked and overjoyed. Their shock was due to the audacity and boldness of the Chung clan, while their joy was because an excellent opportunity to form a close relationship with Ling Han had fallen into their laps. Just think, they sent their people to help Ling Han rescue his father. How big would this debt of gratitude be? Let us quickly set out and head towards Gray Cloud Town. Any clan that had the powerful warrior of Gushing Spring Tear immediately set out at the first available opportunity. They all wanted to be the first person to rescue Ling Dongxing from his captivity. The magnitude of such a debt would be enough for Ling Han to use his whole lifetime to repay them. Because of the panic Ling Han was experiencing, they did not stop at any moment on the journey to rest. Thankfully, their mounts were Blackfoot horses, which possessed a strand of demonic beast blood. Otherwise, normal horses would definitely have died from exhaustion on the way. After a mere half-day's journey, Gray Cloud Town had already come into sight. From afar, Ling Han could already see that there were over 10 people kneeling at the town entrance, and the one in the very middle, wasn't that just Ling Dongxing? "Father!" He shouted loudly, his tone filled with immeasurable rage. Ha 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 ha! This little bastard had really dared to return. Chang Wen-Kuan laughed loudly, raising his right foot to step on Ling Dongxing's face and said, "All right, I admit it now. You truly have a good son. He clearly knows that it is dangerous, but still returned to die." He, of course, did not mean it as a compliment. He only wanted to make things worse for Ling Dongxing. After nearly 4 days without food, Ling Dongxing's sight had become blurry from hunger, so he couldn't see Ling Han, who was some distance away from town. He only had the vague feeling that he might have heard Ling Han's voice. He opened his mouth, and in a weak voice said, "Hana, run! Run quickly! Don't waste your energy. He can't even hear you. Chang Wen-kuan stepped on Ling Dongxing's face and even deliberately ground his foot in, a malevolent expression on his face. His limited patience had long been exhausted through the last few days, and he could not wait to slaughter this pair of father and son. "Old dog, you're looking for death." Ling Han urged his horse into a gallop and arrived. He leaped off his horse. Shwa! His sword was drawn from its sheath, immediately sweeping towards Chang Wen-kuan. Shwa! 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 5 flashes of sword chi appeared in a dance. Due to his towering rage, Ling Han actually underwent a breakthrough and stepped into the level of having 5 flashes of sword chi. What? Chang Wen-kuan was flabbergasted. There actually appeared 5 flashes of sword chi in front of his eyes. He hurriedly put up his hands to parry the incoming blow, but Ling Han's attack was filled with his fury, so of course he had done his very best. Added with the 5 flashes of sword chi, what magnitude of power was that? Ah! Chang Wen-kuan released a horrible scream. Only one strike was enough to fling him away, and blood splattered from his body. Pang! He fell on the ground. He hadn't even managed to get up, and a foot had descended from above, ruthlessly stepping down on his face. Chang Wen-kuan suddenly felt as if he had charged at full speed and crashed into a boulder, as if his head would be bursting at any moment. With a ka, his nose was broken, and he had lost about 4 or 5 teeth, his face completely covered with blood. "You dare to humiliate my father. I will make you experience living hell," Ling Han said in a deep voice. This time he was really enraged. Chapter 83. Chapter 83. How do you want to die? Ta, 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 ta. The sound of racing hooves was heard, and Zhu He-Xian and Zhang Weishan had also arrived, just moments behind them. Their arrival caused Lu Yutong to feel greatly relieved. She jumped off her own horse and began to set free Ling Dongxing and the others, so that Ling Han would not have anything to worry about. "Father, quick, swallow this Protect Origin pill." Ling Han took out a pill bottle, and from within, he took out a green-colored pill before feeding it to Ling Dongxing. Ling Dongxing had no special feelings about this. Since it was his son giving it to him, he'd just swallow it obediently. But Zhu He-Xian and Zhang Weishan had both widened their eyes in shock. For this Protect Origin pill was also an alchemical pill that had been lost in the passage of time, and its effects were even better than the reverse pill. Although the reverse pill had a very powerful name. But compared to the Protect Origin pill, to put it simply, there was actually a very big gap between the two. Both these pills were yellow-grade, mid-level alchemical pills, but they were very difficult to concoct. See, Zhu He-Xian and Zhang Weishan had already obtained the complete pill formula long ago, yet had not yet concocted the reverse pill even after so many days of hard work. Yet Ling Han had now taken out a Protect Origin pill, an alchemical pill that was even more difficult to concoct. How could the two of them not be utterly astonished at this? Ling Han handed a Protect Origin pill to the remaining 10+ survivors of the Ling clan. This Protect Origin pill was the result of his efforts to improve upon the basic reverse pill. So of course its effects were even better. Big brother Han De Xiong is dead. Daddy and Mommy are dead too, woo woo woo. Ling Zixian wept as she lay weakly in Ling Han's arms. However, no tears fell from her eyes, for her tears had long dried up. "I will avenge De Xiong. I will avenge everyone." Ling Han lightly rubbed the little girl's back and said, "Xian Xian, be good. Go to sleep, and when you wake up, everything will be better." The little girl nodded. After the suffering that she had experienced these 4 days, she had long reached her limits, and very soon fell asleep in Ling Han's arms. Ling Han handed the little girl over to Lu Yutong before his eyes returned to Chang Wen-kuan, killing intent burning in them. Although Hunyeo had been tied up and bundled onto the saddle, lying on her side, as she had grown up at the side of a fierce tiger since very young, she was extremely sensitive towards killing intent. She suddenly raised her head, and a ho, ho, ho sound came from her mouth. She was obviously very excited. How is this possible? How could you possibly manage to form 5 flashes of sword chi? Chung, when Kuin got to his feet after much struggle, his nose had been flattened, one side of his mouth was bent out of shape, and his face was completely covered with blood. How do you want to die? Ling Han said in a deep voice, Would you like to be torn limb from limb or dismembered, or perhaps have your head shattered? I will allow you the chance to choose your own death. Little bastard, don't you be arrogant. Even if you have formed 5 flashes of sword chi, it's useless. In front of absolute power, your only end would still be death. Chung, when Kuin taunted, When my 3rd uncle arrives, all of you will die. Ling Han shook his head and said, When I heard you say this, I really thought that I was facing a profligate, spoiled young master in his teens who only knows how to use the adults of his clan as a threat and scare tactic. Humph! When that old creature arrives, I will naturally cut off his dog head. Nonsense, ah! Chung Wen Kuin screamed painfully. He was once again kicked down to the ground by Ling Han. He was filled with immeasurable rage and humiliation. To have another person step on his face was the most humiliating thing in the world, and the one who had stepped on him was furthermore his sworn enemy's son. It was already enough that he could not defeat Ling Dongxing, but now even Ling Dongxing's son had the ability to step on his face. How could he bear such a thing? And at this moment, the townspeople had all come out to watch the oncoming show after hearing the news, and those who lived nearer had all arrived. When they saw Ling Han with an awe-inspiring presence and stepping on Chung Wen Kuin's face, it was as if everyone had turned into stone. Before the appearance of Chung Jiyu, everyone in Grey Cloud Town had recognized Ling Dongxing and Chung Wen Kuin as the strongest elite martial artists of the town, both being in the 9th layer of Element Gathering Tier, with no one else being a match for either of them. And now this person, who had once been recognized as the strongest of them all, was actually stepped on by Ling Han. How could any one of them believe their own eyes? Ling Han had once possessed the grand reputation of being trash of the worst quality. Many of the disciples of Grey Cloud Academy recalled the words that Lu Yutong had once spoken. After 3 months, Ling Han would become an existence that everyone could only look up to. Indeed, he was now even able to step on Chung Wen Kuin, whom amongst them would not look up to him. But the problem now was the strongest warrior in Grey Cloud Town was Chung Jiyu, an elite martial artist of Gushing Spring Tier. No matter how powerful Ling Han was, how could he be more powerful than Gushing Spring Tier? He's done for. Once Chung Jiyu arrives, Ling Han would definitely be finished. It's really too bad for a genius of his caliber. Otherwise, he may even be able to become a powerful warrior of Spiritual Ocean Tier in the future. Spiritual Ocean Tier? Ah, you really dare to say that. That would mean being as strong as the Deyuan King. Think about it. Ling Han is only 17 years old now, but he is already able to step on Chung Wen Kuin like this. How scary is his talent? That's true. The spectators all murmured to each other. All of them were not optimistic about Ling Han, thinking that he had come back to surrender to his death. The formidable prowess of Gushing Spring Tier was embedded deep in the bones of all of them, especially in a small town like Grey Cloud Town. For them, a warrior of Gushing Spring Tier could practically be considered a god. It was at this moment that a figure flew out from the town. The figure was moving extremely fast. Even the speed of a galloping horse could not match its speed. Within a mere instant, the figure had already appeared at a near distance. It was Chung Jiyu. Little bastard, so you are Ling Han? That evil fiend that has killed my grandson? Chung Jiyu's eyes were fixed upon Ling Han, his stare as intense as if he wanted to devour Ling Han. I am Ling Han, and today will be the day of your death. Ling Han replied in kind. Ha 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 ha, I am a powerful warrior of Gushing Spring Tier. What ability do you have to take my life? Qingji, you did not feel in a rush to act. This was the chief culprit who had killed his grandson. He wanted to slowly torture this little bastard to death. And if we fight too? Zhu Hixing and Zhang Weishan both stepped forwards. And who the heck are you, Yi? Qingji Yu was initially indifferent, but when his eyes fell upon the two people who had spoken, his expression suddenly changed, and he gasped in shock. Gushing spring tear! Not just gushing spring tear, but there were two of such powerful warriors in front of his eyes. What? The townspeople all gasped in shock. These two ordinary-looking old men were actually also powerful warriors of gushing spring tear? Hiss! No wonder Ling Han dared to return. So he had actually obtained the assistance of two such elites of gushing spring tear. Qingji Yu's face turned serious. He no longer had any intention of underestimating these two men, and said, "My two brothers, this brat has killed my grandson. No matter what benefits he has promised you, I will offer you double the amount. So please do not interfere." Zhu Qixian and Zhang Weishan exchanged a look, before bursting into laughter simultaneously. Offer them double the amount. Who the fuck do you think you are? How many pill formulae do you have in your possession? And how much understanding do you have in the field of alchemy that you actually dare to make such an overly exaggerated promise? How dare you? Young Friendling's problem is also our problem. Zhang Weishan said, "Zhang, if you surrender, I can promise to beg for a bit of mercy from young Friendling on your behalf, and grant you a swift death." Young Friendling. See. Everyone either sucked air in abruptly between their bared teeth or gasped. These two powerful warriors of gushing spring tear actually addressed Ling Han young friend, and completely appeared as if they were willing to share all of Ling Han's burdens with him. What kind of relationship was this? Fortunately, neither Zhu Xian or Zhang Weishan had worn the badges that proved their alchemist identity, or these townspeople would be even more astonished, for black-grade, low-level alchemists possessed an even higher status than powerful warriors of gushing spring tear. Must the two of you do this? Qingji Yu said in a deep voice. He had just broken through to gushing spring tear, so his confidence level was off the charts. Moreover, he definitely did not believe that these two powerful warriors of gushing spring tear would go all out for Ling Han. He could not think of anything that would cause them to do such a thing. Pung, 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 pung. From a distance away, dirt and soil was flying in all directions as a group of riders was quickly making its way over. "Brotherling, I've brought my people to give you a hand." A young man jumped off his horse and said to Ling Han, raising his clasped hands in the latter's direction. His group of riders had very quickly arrived nearby. It was Bailey Tingyin. Chapter 84. Chapter 84. Respective arrival of helpers. Bailey Tingyin himself did not attract much attention, but the group of sturdy men behind him caused all the spectators to be dumbstruck, because embroidered on the breast of every one of them was the word Bailey. Within the jurisdiction of Diyuan City, there was only one party that dared to use the name Bailey as their symbol, and that was the Bailey sect. Aside from the royal house of Diyuan, one of the four greatest parties in the area. Pooh! Quite a number of people had choked in shock, though they did not recognize Bailey Tingyin. But since this young man had the ability to take command of such a large group of disciples from Bailey sect, his status would definitely not be too low. Moreover, he actually addressed Ling Han as brother, and with such familiarity, so what did this signify? That Ling Han had a very good relationship with the Bailey sect. Qingji Yu's expression changed once more. No matter how confident he was, he would never presume that he had the ability to oppose the Bailey sect. The latter actually had an elite warrior of the 9th layer of gushing spring tear as support. Not even if there was 100 of him would he be able to oppose an opponent of such overwhelming might. His only remaining hope now was that this supposedly very powerful brat did not actually possess a very high status in Bailey sect. Hardly has one wave subsided when another rises. From afar, another bout of dust and dirt flew, and a second group of riders was very quickly making its way over. Ha! So it appears that Brother Bailey has arrived first. A young man jumped off his horse. It was Jin Wuji. He raised his clasped hands in Ling Han's direction and said, "Brother Ling, I've also brought some people from my humble clan to give you a hand. To actually dare to harm Uncle Ling. I would like to see who has such audacity." He had already dispersed the bad feelings between himself and Ling Han. So now the relationship between the two of them was quite friendly. Qingji you could not help giving a humph, and said, "And who are you, to dare talk so big? How dare you?" One of the guards of the Jin clan stepped out. "Have your dog's eyes gone blind? This is our clan's third young master, Jin Wuji." Pooh! The townspeople had barely just regained their composure, and now suddenly there was another wave of shock and astonishment. Who was Jin Wuji? The third young master of the Jin clan, and also the most talented person amongst the younger generation of the Jin clan. He may very possibly inherit the position of clan head of the Jin clan in the future. If that was true, then would the brother Bailey Jin Wuji spoke of just now actually be Bailey Tingyin? After all, the sect master of the Bailey sect only had a single son, and he should be about 16 or 17 years old. Hiss! Two of the most powerful parties of the Yuan city had arrived, and neither of them was represented by a minor character. One of them was the young sect master, while the other was the future clan head, and they both treated Ling Han like a brother. Were they fakes? How could that be possible? Who dared to pass themselves off as these two in Yuan city? Were they tired of living? Qingji, you finally revealed a most uneasy expression. Ling Han now had the protection of two ultra-powerful parties, so even if he managed to somehow get through these two great parties to take Ling Han's life, he himself would also definitely be hunted down and killed by these two great parties. All of a sudden, he was trapped in a dilemma. Should he get his revenge or give it up? He had not yet come to the realization that the matter today would not be solved with a simple "I give up" from him. From the moment he had made a move towards the Ling clan, his fate was already decided, and that was death. Tung, tung, tung. From afar, another pack of riders were very rapidly nearing. The townspeople were already numb with shock, thinking that could this be another member of one of the great powerful parties again. Ha! Brother Jean, Brother Bailey, you two have really arrived very quickly. Amidst a bout of laughter, Li Dongyu leaped off his horse, strode over, and said, "Brother Ling, if you have need of our Stone Wolf sect, you only have to say the word." Hong, when they heard these words, all of them were struck with absolute astonishment. Though the Jin clan and the Bailey sect were indeed powerful on their own, still they were based very far from here. The Stone Wolf sect was their real overlord. When Emir Ma Lang had come here, he was already enough to cause every one of them to feel fear and dread. And this person was actually able to treat Jin Wuji and Bailey Tingyin as brothers, so his status must definitely be above Ma Lang. Chang Wen-kuin was really about to start crying. What was going on here? Why did so many of the ultra-powerful parties appear one after another? And why were they all on Ling Han's side? Jin clan, Bailey sect, Stone Wolf sect, any one of these parties would be able to obliterate Chung clan 10 times over with a mere twitch of their fingers. Thank you, everyone. Wait for me to kill my enemy, and we will have a good drink together. Ling Han said, raising his clasped hands. You can help me eliminate the Chung clan. Just leave these two chief culprits to me. You can depend on us. Jin Wuji and the other two agreed straight away, putting aside the fact that all three of their parties collaborated together. Even if there was only one of them here, their might would be more than enough to easily wipe out the Chung clan. No. Chung Wen-kuin said, trembling, You can't do this. You can't do this. When you wiped out my Ling clan, why had you been so merciless then? Ling Han said in a deep voice, I have always been a very fair person. If others respect me, I will do the same. But if anyone dares to harm a single hair on the heads of my family, I will definitely return the favor 100-fold. Jin Wuji and the other two leaders, with a wave of their hand, led their groups in an advance. Without an elite warrior like Cheng Jiyu overseeing things, what could the Cheng clan count as? Stop right there! Cheng Jiyu shouted loudly. He would, of course, not simply stand by and watch as his clan is being wiped out. But he had just raised his foot when he saw Zhu Hexien and Zhang Weishan had simultaneously leaped out and surrounded him, one of them in front of him, while the other behind him. Tung, tung, tung. And it was at this moment that more and more people rushed over. Among them, there were minor clans of the Yuan city as well as parties from other towns. Some even had elite martial artists of gushing spring tear in their midst. They arrived one after the other, and practically drowned Grey Cloud Town with their numbers. This was too scary. Now, aside from the royal house of the Yuan king, all the parties with some reputation had practically all arrived. And these people, they had all come because of Ling Han. Since when had this young master trash become so awesome? Chen, when Kuin's face had turned ashen, looks like Cheng clan would not be able to escape this calamity that would befall them today. He was filled with regret. Why had he not simply killed off Ling Dongxing? At least then, he would have pulled this sworn enemy of his to death with him, so he would not have a very lonely journey to the afterlife. Pa! Ling Han's foot lowered and stepped heavily upon Cheng when Kuin's face. Old dog, you still dare to have evil intentions, even now. Ha 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 ha, so what if I die? Your Ling clan clansmen have also died with me. Cheng, when Kuin knew that he would not be able to survive, so he decided to simply throw caution to the wind and glared furiously at Ling Han. Pa! Ling Han gave another stamp of his foot and shattered all the teeth in Cheng when Kuin's mouth. The agony caused him to move around vigorously, yet because Ling Han was still stepping on him, he only managed to continuously flop around on the ground. Brother Ling, a tall, young man, stepped out from the ranks of the others. This young man's aura swept out in terrifying ripples. It was Qi Yongyi. Greetings, fourth prince. The others all bowed in greeting. Fourth prince. The townspeople of Grey Cloud Town were all stunned for a very long moment. Finally, they came back to reality and quickly followed the others to bow down in respect. Their thoughts were all filled with astonishment. Now, all the different parties of the Yuan city had arrived, and they had only one reason for coming here, Ling Han. What magic did he actually possess? And in this moment, Cheng Wen Kuin had dropped completely into the depths of despair. Even the royal house of the Yuan had come because of Ling Han, so what hope was there left for the Cheng clan? Are you going to force me to go all out? Cheng Ji, you roared loudly, his eyes wide with fury. From the looks of it, the Cheng clan would definitely be wiped out today. Therefore, he definitely had to escape and survive, so that he could find a chance in the future to kill Ling Han. Not just Ling Han, but also all the other survivors of the Ling clan. Your only path is death. Zhu Hexien said coldly. Cheng Jiyu actually dared to harm the father of someone he thought of as half his master. The old man was also now in a towering rage. Chapter 85. Chapter 85. No more Cheng clan. Cheng Ji went all out. He wanted to cut out a path of blood and return later to claim his vengeance. Theoretically, even if there were 3 of him, he would still be no match for either Zhu Hexien and Zhang Weishan. What more now that the two were working together? However, if a martial artist of gushing spring tear threw all caution away and went all out, it was still a very scary thing. Not even Zhu Hexien or Zhang Weishan dared to jump into a head-on clash with Cheng Jiyu. They did not want to be dragged down together with the latter after all. Furthermore, how long could he last after throwing aside all caution? They only needed to stall him for a while, and after his burst of energy was exhausted, Cheng Ji-yu's battle prowess would naturally take a drastic drop, and by that time, it'd be extremely easy to defeat him. "Little bastard, you'll definitely die. All the people in your Ling clan will die," Chang Wen-kuan called out severely. "As long as Cheng Ji-yu managed to escape with his life, then the Ling clan would definitely be eliminated, unless Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan planned to stand guard at the Ling clan residence for the rest of their lives." "Noisy!" Ling Han gave a cold humph, and his foot stamped down firmly. "Pah!" And Chang Wen-kuan's entire head was stamped into pulp. Blood spurted out in a gush, and the headless body struggled for quite some time before its movements ceased. This scene struck all the spectators speechless, as they thought that this young man really had guts of steel. Killing a man was not impossible, but the scary thing was how coldly he had done such a deed. With one stamp of his foot, Chang Wen-kuan's head was smashed into pulp, yet there was no change of expression on his face. It was just too gruesome. This brat from the Ling clan has the qualifications to become a Rilurdo, never be merciful towards his enemies, and kill them ruthlessly. That's right, a merciful person, no matter how talented they are, would never live very long. But when I understood that I was already over 30 years old, and this brat from the Ling clan is currently only 17 years old. He's really impressive. Hunyo's eyes were bright. She had the instincts of a wild beast and could keenly sense the killing intent emanating from Ling Han. She was both afraid and excited, for it was a familiar feeling to her. She wriggled around and really wanted to pounce to Ling Han's side, but because both her arms and legs were tied up, she could only struggle around pointlessly. Though Ling Han had killed one of the culprits responsible, his rage did not decrease in the slightest. The miserable and humiliated appearance of his father and his clansmen could not be removed from his mind's eye, so his killing intent burned even more strongly. His stare fixed upon Cheng Ji-yu. This was another culprit, or it could be claimed that he's the chief culprit of this entire calamity. Because if it had not been for Cheng Ji-yu, how would the Cheng clan have dared to assault the Ling clan? He definitely must kill this fiend with his own hands. "Get out of my way!" He shouted loudly and flew forward in a charge towards Cheng Ji-yu. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan were both flabbergasted. They were about to stop Ling Han so that he would not be embroiled in such a dangerous situation. Yet Ling Han shouted, "I want to take down this old dog on my own. Don't the two of you interfere!" His countenance was determined and did not allow either of them the chance to refuse. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan could only step back, but they still prepared themselves. As soon as they saw Ling Han in danger, they would definitely step in and give him a hand, even if they would be rebuked by Ling Han later. Ling Han stimulated the lone wolf's blood, and his prowess, which was initially at the 8th layer of element gathering tier, was further upgraded. However, due to the fact that he had not suffered any debilitating injuries, the upgrade from Lone Wolf's blood was not too big, and only allowed his battle prowess to reach the peak period of the 8th layer of element gathering tier. But together with the rapid dance of 5 flashes of sword chi and the shocking electricity sword arts, his might was still something to be feared. Yet Cheng Ji-yu did not feel a single bit of fear. Giving a light snort, he struck repeatedly with his palms, which all transformed into gigantic hands formed of origin power, striking towards Ling Han. These gigantic hands of origin power were extremely solid and easily crushed the incoming flashes of sword chi, fully displaying the might of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear. Ga, little bastard. What you're doing now is only seeking your own death." Cheng Ji-yu was extremely pleased. He could tell that whether it was Zhu Hexian or Zhang Weishan, or the various parties of Deyuan City, they had all actually come because of Ling Han. Thus, as long as he managed to take down Ling Han, he'd be able to take him hostage and escape this siege. When he was finally safe, he would of course kill Ling Han with a single palm strike and thus achieve his vengeance, and would never again return to this place in his lifetime. Humph! Today will be the day of your death. Ling Han hissed, waving his sword repeatedly, the sword chi of his attacks seeming like rainbows. However, the power gap between himself and Cheng Jiyu was still too big. With one clap of the gigantic hand formed of origin power from Cheng Jiyu, he could feel his internal organs trembling due to the impact. But because he had already learned the ability of Body of Dead Tree, and also possessed the indestructible Heaven Scroll to help him recover his wounds, he only looked miserable. However, in truth, the repeated attacks actually helped to further stimulate the lone wolf's blood and allowed his power to increase even further. Still, no matter how big the power upgrade was, it was impossible for his power to break through to Gushing Spring Tear. Ling Han frowned. The space in his dantian was now abnormally big, so his ability to last in battle was something to be feared, and together with the ability of self-recovery from the indestructible Heaven Scroll, he could easily wait for Cheng Jiyu to drive himself to death with exhaustion. But he was acting out of revenge now, and to drag this battle out for such a long time, he could not wait, and neither could Ling Dongxing. Moreover, he did not want Ling Dongxing to worry any longer about him. In this case, Ling Han's gaze steeled, and without an ounce of hesitation, he communicated with the Black Tower. He wanted to use the blessing of the Black Tower to strengthen himself and increase his battle prowess by an entire tier. Black Tower, come, give me power. Within his dantian, the Black Tower gave a light tremble, and a mysterious power emanated from it as it started droning. This power gushed out within Ling Han's body and increased his cultivation level at an extremely rapid rate. 5th layer of element gathering tier. 6th layer, 7th layer. Within the time for him to take a single breath, his cultivation level had broken through to Gushing Spring Tier and continued to further increase after that, finally stopping at the 4th layer of Gushing Spring Tier. It had completely increased his cultivation level with a massive upgrade of a whole tier. What? Having sensed the abominable increase in power within Ling Han, Cheng Jiyu, Zhu Hiexian, and Zhang Weishan all felt as if their eyeballs were going to pop out due to this tremendous shock. How was this possible? A martial artist in the 4th layer of element gathering tier actually instantaneously increased his own cultivation level by an entire tier. He truly deserved the name of alchemy genius. Zhu Hiexian and Zhang Weishan immediately thought that Ling Han must have swallowed some kind of alchemical pill to achieve such a power upgrade, and they could not help the admiration and reverence they felt towards Ling Han's abilities as an alchemist increasing. Whether there existed such an alchemical pill in this world, the two old men did not even have a moment of doubt. They had already come to the stage that they would blindly trust Ling Han's abilities as an alchemist. Damn you! Cheng Jiyu roared, and his palms struck repeatedly. One after another, gigantic hands of origin power came to life and headed towards Ling Han. Ling Han gave a humph, his left hand curled into a fist and flew forward in his own attack. Only his power had been upgraded to Gushing Spring Tier, so he still could not give form to his origin power. But that was all right. The power of the 4th layer of Gushing Spring Tier would absolutely dominate the 1st layer. So with a single punch, the green-colored gigantic hand formed of origin power instantly shattered. Ling Han had already charged forward, and with a wave of his sword, 5 flashes of sword chi flew forward. Pooh! There instantly appeared 5 sword wounds on Cheng Jiyu's chest, causing his chest to become a gory scene of blood and flesh. The wounds were so deep that even his bones and internal organs could faintly be seen. "Old dog, hand over your life," Ling Han said in a deep voice. "Little bastard, you only forcibly increased your power to Gushing Spring Tier. But how much power would you actually be able to show? I will definitely be able to kill you." Cheng Jiyu released a furious roar. His hands moved continuously as he used the secret art of the Chung clan expert armed fist. Unfortunately, though he had broken through to Gushing Spring Tier and was now able to cultivate black-grade martial arts techniques. The problem was that the Chung clan did not even possess yellow-grade high-level martial arts techniques. Where would they have been able to get their hands on a black-grade martial arts technique? This expert armed fist was only a yellow-grade mid-level technique, so its power was very limited. There was no way it would be able to compensate for the power gap between the first and fourth layer of gushing spring tear. Ling Han smiled coldly. If an ordinary martial artist did forcibly increase his own cultivation level by a whole tier, he would indeed be unable to control such terrifying power, because such an upgrade was too enormous. But he was different. In his last life, his cultivation level had been of heaven tier, so what could a mere fourth layer of gushing spring tear count as? Ling Han waved his sword in a powerful barrage of attacks, his sword chi seeming like rainbows, completely dominating Cheng Jiyu. The fourth layer of gushing spring tear against the first layer, that was going to be a one-sided battle in the first place. Pam! Ling Han raised his foot and aimed a kick at Cheng Jiyu's chest. Ka! 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 The sound of bones breaking and fracturing was heard. At least 4 of Cheng Jiyu's ribs had broken, and his dantian was completely shattered as his body slid to right in front of Ling Dongxing. Kneel! Ling Han commanded coldly. Nonsense! Cheng Jiyu shouted furiously. Even if he was killed, he would never lower his head in front of his enemy. You have no choice. Ling Han waved his sword. Pooh! Pew! 2 splatters of blood appeared, and Cheng Jiyu's foot tendons had been torn, and he could not help his legs from bending as he knelt down in front of Ling Dongxing. Little beast, even if I become a ghost, I will not spare you. Cheng Jiyu spat out blood. He knew that he would definitely die today, so he did not even think of begging for mercy. His eyes were sharp as daggers, as he wanted nothing more than to stab Ling Han to death with his eyes alone. Father, this person is yours. Ling Han calmed himself. He knew that Ling Dongxing wanted even more to kill this enemy with his own hands. All right. Ling Dongxing's face was filled with killing intent. He recalled how his clansmen were killed right in front of his very eyes, as if they were mere animals to be slaughtered. Their blood had painted the whole Ling clan residence red, and their bodies lay everywhere. His eyes instantly turned red, and taking the sword that Ling Han handed over to him, he immediately struck with a stab. Pooh! The sharp sword stabbed right into his chest, and Cheng Jiyu glared at Ling Dongxing with utmost unwillingness. His mouth opened and closed a few times, as if he wanted to say something, but only blood gurgled out of his mouth. His head slanted to one side, and he was dead. Ling Dongxing gave a kick to the body of Cheng Jiyu, and the corpse flew some distance away. He raised his face to the skies and released an enraged roar. From today onwards, there would be no more Qing clan in Grey Cloud Town. Chapter 86. Chapter 86. Lu Yutong breaks through. Under the siege and assault of so many different parties, how could the Chung clan resist? They were instantly wiped out. Perhaps there may be a few who have fortunately escaped, but with Ling Han's current status in Yuan City, the survivors of the Chung clan would be ultimately detested by all. They'd have to keep running and hiding, or they'd definitely be apprehended and delivered straight to the Ling clan. Who did not want to befriend Ling Han? There were not many members of the previously flourishing Ling clan who survived. Thus, Qi Yongyi and the others did not leave immediately after eliminating the Chun clan. They left behind their people to assist the Ling clan in taking control of the situation. But after such a battle, most likely no other party within the jurisdiction of the Yuan city would dare to make an enemy of the Ling clan. Previously, more than 100 different parties of varying power and might came to Ling Han's aid, so who would not be terrified of seeing a repeat of this scene? All the properties of the Chung clan naturally fell into the ownership of the Ling clan. However, because the Chung clan had long been forced into economically dire straits, they were actually almost destitute. However, their minerals still existed, and so did their shop lots. With proper management, these properties would definitely be able to generate a massive income for the Ling clan. After staying at the Ling clan residence for about a day, Chi Yong-yi and the others excused themselves and departed. They were about to set off towards Huyang Academy, and since Ling Han would be going to the same place very soon, they did not depart with heavy hearts. After all, they'd be able to see each other again in a few days' time. Meanwhile, Lu Yutong entered seclusion in preparation to break through to Gushing Spring Tier, for she felt that she was really too useless. At a time when Ling Han needed his little female attendant the most, she couldn't even do anything to help him, causing her to feel very dissatisfied with her current ability. Thus, as soon as the danger was over, she immediately began the process of breaking through. Ling Han also needed to stay for a while longer to help take care of some of the clan matters, so he decided to wait until Lu Yutong had broken through to Gushing Spring Tier before taking Ling Zixian and Hunyo with them to Huyang Academy. The first item on the agenda was naturally the funerals of the clansmen of the Ling clan. Too many people had died. Merely the funerals alone took 7 days. Moreover, because too many of their clansmen had died, there was a need to replenish their manpower by a massive amount, or it would not be possible to manage so many different properties. Ling Han was not of much help. He was an expert in alchemy and martial arts, but in such matters he was completely inexperienced. Thankfully, Chi Yong-yi and the others left behind many of their own people to assist, and had promised that they would wait until the Ling clan recovered before calling those people back. In the meantime, Qin Feng Lai came once, bringing some news to Ling Han. Qin Pengju had indeed had a slip of the tongue after drinking too much, and the incident of Hang Zhan's murder was known by someone else. That person, after much hesitation, finally decided to go to Stonewolf's sect to tell the secret, so that he'd be able to gain some benefits. Who knew that he actually encountered Qin Feng Lai, and after Qin Feng Lai discovered the whole story, he immediately killed the man to keep him from divulging the secret. Qin Feng Lai had come deliberately to express his good faith. The current Qin Feng Lai no longer dared to have any thoughts of betraying Ling Han. How many parties stood behind Ling Han? Unless Qin Feng Lai had lost his senses, otherwise he would not dare to make trouble. Thus, Ling Han gave him the complete medicine formula to resolve his state of madness as a reward. On the 9th day, an extremely powerful wave of power swept out from the inner courtyard of the Ling clan residence, and the terrifying pressure caused many elite martial artists of Gushing Spring Tier to feel as if their hearts and souls were pounding. Lu Yutong had broken through. Ling Han had been sitting in the middle of the courtyard in the midst of cultivation when a shapely figure flew towards him before stopping at his side. It was Lu Yutong. "Not bad. 8 days and you've broken through. Your talent is truly not bad." Ling Han smiled and nodded. Though he had previously given Lu Yutong much valuable experience in battle, but to be able to break through completely within a mere 8 days, Lu Yutong's talent in the field of martial arts was indeed extremely high. Lu Yutong nodded, and in a firm voice she said, "In the future, I will definitely not become your burden. Instead, I will be a helper you can depend on." "Haha, I believe you," Ling Han said with a laugh. After some thought, he said, "Since you've broken through to Gushing Spring Tier, then I'll teach you the 3rd level of cultivation technique of the 3 Yin mysterious arts. Once you've mastered that, you will never need to worry about falling unconscious again." "N." Lu Yutong nodded, appearing slightly excited. This was a heaven-grade cultivation technique, and for a martial arts maniac like herself, it was an irresistible temptation. The two of them returned to the inner chambers, and Ling Han naturally again underwent a test of his own while he had been guiding her in the cultivation technique, causing his emotions to ripple continuously. This young girl was indeed a demon. After much difficulty, he finally finished guiding her in the cultivation technique. Ling Han once again stepped out and continued to sit cross-legged in the courtyard. Previously, the Black Tower allowed him to temporarily obtain the power of Gushing Spring Tier, but it only lasted for 1 hour. And the next time he wanted to make use of the power of the Black Tower again, he would have to wait until he has successfully broken through to Gushing Spring Tear. However, when he has finally broken through to Gushing Spring Tear, he'd be able to gain a preliminary understanding of the secrets behind the Black Tower. He had no idea what kind of surprises awaited him then. Additionally, Ling Han had also achieved the 5th layer of Element Gathering Tear by now. The reason why he had been able to break through so quickly had been because, after the blessing of the Black Tower had been used up, though the power he gained very quickly disappeared, it seemed as if a small portion of it had been left within his body. After a few days of digestion, this power now belonged completely to him alone. Initially, he had only required about a month to complete accumulating enough energy to break through to the next layer. But now that he had obtained such benefits, naturally everything went smoothly, and as to be expected, he had successfully broken through. With the stimulation of the 5 elements origin nuclei, his power would soar to the 9th layer of Element Gathering Tear. If he fought with Qi Yongyi again now, he should be able to achieve an absolute victory. My current battle prowess should be about 14 stars, right? Ling Han mumbled to himself. In the field of martial arts, there were many geniuses who could disregard the gap between their own cultivation level and their opponent to challenge someone much stronger than them. Their actual battle prowess did not correspond to their actual cultivation level, and so cultivation level was completely unable to measure the battle prowess of a genius. As a result, the world of martial arts possessed a different way to measure battle prowess, named as battle stars. For example, if a genius whose actual cultivation level was only 4th layer of Element Gathering Tear was able to battle evenly with an opponent of the 6th layer of Element Gathering Tear, his battle prowess would be 6 stars. And within the 9th layer of Element Gathering Tear, Li Dongyu's battle prowess was the weakest, so he only had 10 stars. Jin Wuji should have 11 stars, and Qi Yongyi, due to using the Son of Heaven Fist technique together with 3 flashes of Fist Qi, should be able to reach 13 stars, Ling Han thought. However, there were too many variables that could affect battle prowess. For example, if Bailey Tengyin wielded the Staff of Destruction, his battle prowess would be enough to soar to 11 stars. But without this staff, his battle prowess would only be about 9 stars. He wouldn't even be able to match Li Dongyu. Some people were the emotional type. Under great rage, or after drinking too much, their battle prowess would shoot up. As a result, while cultivation levels did not change, battle stars were variable. Only a real-time situation would be able to reveal how many stars would someone reach at their best. In my last life, although my cultivation level was the peak period of Heaven Tier, my battle prowess should be only about 9 stars or 10 stars at most. I wonder what level could those freaks have reached? Ling Han shook his head. In his last life, he had spent his time either continuously concocting alchemical pills or secluding himself to break through to the next cultivation level. Even when he had reached the highest he could go in terms of cultivation level, he still did not seek out the other 6 powerful warriors of Heaven Tier for a serious spar. When he recalled that, he could not help feeling a bit regretful. And it was at this moment that the sound of a commotion was heard from outside. It quickly transmitted over to the inner court where he was and became closer and closer. Pam! After only a short while, the commotion had spread to this courtyard. The door was heavily kicked open, and a tall, slender young man entered. This person had an imposing appearance. He was dressed in embroidered clothing, a sword hanging from his waist. His expression was one of extreme arrogance, as if he wanted nothing more than to have his nostrils facing the heavens, making it seem as if coming here had been an exercise of utmost humility for him. Behind him followed a group of servants of the Ling clan. They were all underlings Qi Yongyi, and the others had left behind to serve Ling Han. All of them were covered in dirt, as if they had just been beaten up. Some even had their arms broken. This one had not come with good intentions. Chapter 87. Chapter 87. Hubo. This young man was in Gushing Spring Tier. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. This person appeared to be only about 23 or 24 years old, yet he had already stepped into gushing spring tier, and had even reached the peak period of the first layer. In Rain Country, this kind of person would definitely be considered a genius. Could this be Feng Yan? In the area of Duyuan City's control, if you were to ask what enemies he had, then it could only be Feng Luo, who had suffered losses twice by his hand. Could that guy have asked his brother to come back? No, according to rumors, Feng Yan was already in the third layer of gushing spring tier. However, this person was really too tyrannical. He had obviously forced his way here, and when someone dared to stop him, he actually acted to wound them. Young Master Han, this person said he wanted to see Miss Lu and forced his way through. Some of us tried to stop him, yet were killed by him in their attempt. One of the attendants following behind this young man immediately said to Ling Han, his face filled with grief. Ling Han could not help his anger from rising. Barging his way through was already arrogant enough actually dared to kill? This guy, just because he was in gushing spring tier, was actually lawless to such a point. Go! I command you to invite Yu Tong out here. This young man said to Ling Han as if he were ordering around a servant. Ling Han looked at him and said in a deep voice, You killed my people. So what? They are only lowly dogs. So what if 1,000 or 10,000 die? The young man said indifferently, instantly causing the others to be filled with righteous indignation, wanting nothing more than to kill this guy 100 times if they could with their sharp gazes alone. Ling Han gave a humph and said, In my eyes, you're lower than even a dog. The young man was stunned for a moment before laughing loudly and said, A mere martial artist in the 5th layer of element gathering tier. And you actually dare to insult me? Ha 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 ha, you probably don't know who I, Hubo, am, right? I don't care who you are. Ling Han had already leaped forwards, and with a ding, his sword had left its sheath. The sword flew forward as quick as lightning. How dare you? The young man who had proclaimed himself Hubo instantly revealed a furious expression. His right hand opened up and origin power formed a golden palm, intending to grab hold of Ling Han's sword. Ling Han's right hand moved, and 5 flashes of sword chi appeared together. Shwa, 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 shwa. 6 sword images slashed as one, and the large hand formed from origin power was instantly sliced into pieces. Ling Han pushed forward, his sword aiming directly for Hubo's throat. 5 flashes of sword chi? Hubo could not help releasing a surprised gasp. He once again struck forward with a palm, and another large hand of origin power blasted forward, halting Ling Han's further advance. He could not help a cold smile turning up the corners of his lips and said, I never thought that a tiny place like Gray Cloud Town could actually produce a genius that managed to form 5 flashes of sword chi. Moreover, you are obviously only in the 5th layer of element gathering tier, yet the prowess you've shown can be compared to the 9th layer. You should have about 13 battle stars, right? What battle stars? Those people who had followed in were all at a loss. They had never heard such a phrase before. But in front of me, no matter how many battle stars you have, it is completely useless. Hubo shook his head. The gap between cultivation levels is too big. If I did fight with my full power, I'd be able to kill you in one move. He paused for a moment, then said, I treasure talent, so I will give you an opportunity to live. As long as you become my underling, I not only will spare you, I'll even be able to give you ultimate godly techniques. If Lu Yutong had been able to hear this, she'd definitely laugh her head off. Who was Ling Han? Someone who could casually take out a heaven-grade cultivation technique. So, what kind of cultivation technique did you plan to give him that deserved to be called ultimate godly techniques? Kneel down and accept your death, and I can give you a swift end. Ling Han replied back. Hubo was enraged and said, Brat, being arrogant just because you're a little bit talented is not a good habit. Since you deliberately seek your own death, Then let me help you. This time he made the first move. As his hands moved, his attacks swept out in waves, and his battle prowess had improved to a whole new level as compared to previously. However, it was still only an increase of 1 star. Of course, this star was applicable only to Gushing Spring Tier. Ling Han was not afraid. Indeed, his battle prowess was not able to reach the level of Gushing Spring Tier, but his defense was awesome. The body of Dead Tree allowed him to withstand tremendously powerful attacks repeatedly without suffering any injury, and the indestructible Heaven Scroll allowed him to instantaneously recover whatever wounds he did suffer. It was enough to qualify him for this battle. The two martial artists clashed, and flashes of sword chi soared to the heavens, origin power gushing all over the place. This can't be. Young Master Han was actually so powerful. He can actually fight on even grounds with a powerful warrior of Gushing Spring Tier. What does this count as? Didn't young Master Han just slaughter one a few days ago? But that old guy had just broken through, so he definitely couldn't have been as powerful as this one. Murmurs rose up among the crowd, and they were all flabbergasted at Ling Han's might. He was undoubtedly only in the 5th layer of Element Gathering Tier, yet could actually fight on even grounds with a person in Gushing Spring Tier. This was practically unbelievable. However, Gushing Spring Tier was still Gushing Spring Tier after all. After a couple of exchanges of blows, blood not only stained the corners of Ling Han's mouth, the skin all over his body had also cracked, dripping blood. And this was because he had learnt the body of Dead Tree ability. Otherwise, suffering such a bout of assault, even his bones would long have been shattered. Facing such a scene, the others could only feel a deep sense of admiration and reverence. This was the gap of a whole tier, yet Ling Han could still manage to fight until such a point. If the two fighters had the same cultivation level, then Ling Han most likely would have been able to kill his opponent in one move. Ling Han's condition was not as bad as it looked. With the circulation of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, the wounds that he had suffered were actually recovering very quickly. His battle prowess not only did not weaken, it became even stronger with the use of the lone wolf's blood. After such a long battle, he had also obtained a rough grasp of his opponent's attacks. Every secret behind his opponent's moves was practically revealed to him. Xiao! His sword suddenly shot forward, and 5 flashes of sword chi moved unhindered, as if it was the writing brush of a god, aiming straight for Hu Bo's chest. Hu Bo was extremely shocked, although all of his moves had their own weaknesses. But how could they have been seen through by a mere martial artist of Element Gathering Tier? But that was exactly the truth of what happened. This slash from Ling Han aimed straight at his weak point and was heading towards him. In a moment of desperation, he could only raise his hands and place them in a block in front of his chest. Pooh! A spurt of blood sprayed. A wound had appeared on his right palm, and blood was pouring from it. The two fighters had been fighting so long, and finally Ling Han managed to score a hit on his opponent. Hua! The people around them exploded with shocked exclamations, obviously extremely excited. Although Hu Bo had only suffered a single injury and experienced a little bit of loss, but the crucial point was that he was in Gushing Spring Tier. A martial artist at the grand level of Gushing Spring Tier was actually successfully wounded by a martial artist in Element Gathering Tier. No matter where this happened, it would be seen as a feat of impressive heights. Hu Bo's face was twisted into a malevolent expression. This stab had not harmed him much, and he had only bled a little, so it was not a serious injury. Yet his hatred for Ling Han had reached astronomical levels. A mere commoner from such a desolate place, and he actually dared to harm him, a member of one of the 8 great clans of the imperial city, the 7th young master of the Hu clan. If such a piece of news were to spread out, how would he be able to continue facing his circle of friends? Additionally, wasn't this young man's talent too scary? If he really did grow to Gushing Spring Tier, how strong would he be? He could not allow Ling Han to live. Hu Bo had developed a serious intention to kill Ling Han. Previously, even if he had really meant to kill Ling Han. That was the same as a human being casually killing a bug. It was not something that would be considered seriously. But now he really intended to kill Ling Han and put his all into the effort. He slowly drew his sword and said, "You do have some ability, but this is as far as you can go." Because he was in gushing spring tier, he was able to use black grade martial arts techniques. Chapter 88. Chapter 88, Becoming Enemies. Hu Bo's hand held his drawn sword. His status was a noble one. He was in the uppermost social class below the imperial family of Rain Country, yet had now actually suffered an injury from someone else. This had inflicted a heavy blow on his self-esteem, and there was no way his ego could accept such a thing happening. So his desire to erase this future ruler increased even further. 5 flashes of sword chi that could be considered a strong enough existence among rulers. You will not be able to kill me today, nor will you be able to do so in the future. You will only die by my hand. Ling Han said deeply. From the moment Hu Bo had committed murder within the grounds of the Ling clan residence, that already meant this man's fate was sealed. Not even the gods would be able to change his fate, because this was a man he intended to kill. Hu Bo, what are you doing here? Xiao! A figure flashed into the vicinity, and Lu Yutong had appeared. She had been in the midst of analyzing the 3rd level of cultivation technique from the 3 Een mysterious arts. But hearing the commotion outside becoming louder, she immediately realized that something was not right, and thus immediately leaped out. Her beautiful face was filled with anger, and because she saw that Ling Han was covered with blood, her heart could not help tightening as a powerful killing intent immediately rose to life within her. Anyone who dared to injure Ling Han, they were all unforgivable. However, this Hu Bo was the 7th young master of the Hu clan, and was of the same social status as herself. Moreover, he was even stronger than her, so she could not act rashly, or she could possibly cause Ling Han's death. This was something she was even more unwilling to see. Yu Tong! Hu Bo immediately restrained his killing intent, smiled, and said, "Your trip this time took quite a few months. I was very worried about you, so I deliberately came over to escort you back. I don't need you to meddle in my affairs." Lu Yutong said coldly. She pointed at the door and said, "You can get lost now." Yutong, it can't be that you've fallen in love with this brat, right? Hu Bo's gaze swept over to Ling Han, uncontrollable jealousy brimming in them. "Then this brat is definitely going to die. You dare to take one more step." Lu Yutong slanted her body to stand in front of Ling Han, an icy expression on her beautiful face. "Hung, it can't be that you've really been captivated by him." Hu Bo was about to be driven mad with rage. He and Lu Yutong were both members of the 8 great clans of the imperial city, and in order not to be pushed around easily by the imperial family, it was common for the 8 great clans to ally with each other through marriage. After Lu Yutong was discovered to possess such powerful talent in the field of martial arts, the members of the other 7 great clans all started brimming with desire to have her marry into their respective clans, and Hu Bo was one of her many admirers and pursuers. And personally, he was very satisfied because not only did Lu Yutong possess a terrifying talent in martial arts, she was also one of the twin stunning pearls of the imperial city. What man would not want to marry her? But he had never imagined that she had just stepped out for a short while, and her heart and soul was captured by a wild brat, a mere country bumpkin. "I want to kill him. I want to kill this little bastard." He roared with rage, and with one leap, pounced towards Ling Han. "How dare you!" Lu Yutong stepped forward to parry. Hung! The aura of gushing spring tear exploded. "E!" Hu Bo gasped in shock, a surprised expression on his face. "Gushing spring tear. You've broken through to gushing spring tear." There was no way he wouldn't be surprised. Although it was common knowledge that Lu Yutong was extremely talented in the field of martial arts, but no matter how talented she was, she should have only been able to break through to gushing spring tear after she has passed 20 years old. Moreover, a few months ago, Lu Yutong had only been in the 8th layer of element gathering tear. So theoretically, it would already have been difficult enough for her to reach the peak period of the 9th layer of gushing spring tear by now. And to break through to gushing spring tear, she should at least have needed another 1 or 2 years to settle. Though power could be forcibly increased with the aid of alchemical pills, it was impossible to fake one's aura. This was definitely the aura of gushing spring tear, and from the feel of it, she had just broken through quite recently. Genius, she really was a genius. "Yu Tong, I've blamed you wrongly," he quickly said. Being able to break through to gushing spring tear in such a short period of time, how could Lu Yutong have any spare time to get into a romantic relationship? She must have gotten some kind of fateful encounter here, and had been putting all her efforts into breaking through. This must be the reason why she had been staying here for such a long period of time. Get lost. Lu Yutong ignored his words, her palms moved, and a terrifying, offensive power rose up. The symbol of gushing spring tear was origin power given form. With the claps of her palms, one after another, giant hands of origin power were formed, flying towards Hubo. And because Hubo felt that he was in the wrong, he did not dare to parry her attacks. He only kept dodging while pleading for mercy. But because he was at the peak period of the 1st layer of gushing spring tear, he was much more powerful than Lu Yutong. Moreover, Lu Yutong had just broken through, so there was no way she would be used to using the increased power that she possessed now, and he very easily dodged her attacks. And more importantly, though gushing spring tear allowed the martial artist to learn black-grade martial arts techniques, Lu Yutong had just broken through, so how would she have had the time to cultivate any? So she was even less of a threat to Hubo. Yutong, calm down. I'll leave, all right? When you return to the Imperial City, I'll look for you again. Hubo retreated, but before he left, he gave a cold glare to Ling Han and said, "Brat, don't think that just because you're close to her, you're favored. Yutong is not someone you can have delusions about. If you dare, I will definitely tear you to pieces." Without waiting for Lu Yutong's reaction, his figure took a great leap, and he had already disappeared to a far-off distance. Lu Yutong chased after him for a few steps, but then gave up. Hubo was much faster than her. "I'm sorry." She raced back to Ling Han's side and said with deep remorse, Hubo had come to the Ling clan residence and killed so many people, yet she was unable to apprehend him. "You don't have to apologize. That guy belongs to me." Ling Han humphed coldly. The current him indeed did not yet possess the ability to kill Hubo, but it would definitely not be too much of a weight. Lu Yutong knew that Ling Han was a man who kept his word, so she quickly said, "The Hu clan is one of the 8 great clans of the Imperial City, and their power is at the same level as our Lu clan. They also possess a powerful warrior of spiritual pedestal tier as support. You definitely must not act rashly." Ling Han had already guessed that Hubo must have an exceptionally high social status. Otherwise, he would not have been qualified to pursue Lu Yutong. He nodded and said, "Am I the rash type of person?" Lu Yutong could not help but observe a moment of silence in tribute of the Hu clan. Although Ling Han was currently only in element gathering tier, his talent in martial arts was higher than her own by 100-fold. And together with his achievements in the field of alchemy, the Hu clan have gained a powerful enemy this time. Though there were still 1,000 things left to do at the Ling clan, Ling Dongxing still forced Ling Han out of the Ling clan residence, commanding him to immediately set off to report at the Huyang Academy. After a moment of consideration, Ling Han realized that his staying here wouldn't help anything anyways, so he might as well set out. He and Lu Yutong brought Ling Zixian and Hunyo with them. However, because Ling Zixian's parents had both died in the Great Slaughter previously, Ling Han still had to look for someone to take care of these 2 little girls after they had reached the Imperial City. Now, Hunyo had slowly gotten accustomed to eating cooked meat, but she was still only interested in eating meat. She wouldn't even touch any kind of vegetable, but she was now exceptionally clingy towards Ling Han. Whenever there was time, she would lean against him like a kitten, resting her little head on his knee. Don't think that she had put away her wild nature, though, because to other people she was still extremely ferocious. But because of Ling Han, she had also become slightly closer to Lu Yutong and Ling Zixian. Or, at least, she would not try to bite the two of them anymore. And Ling Han realized to his extreme shock that this wild little girl never seemed to be able to get full. No matter how much food they gave her, she would be able to easily consume it all. And after she had eaten some demonic beast meat, there actually appeared a spike in her cultivation level, and she quickly stepped into the 4th layer of body refining tier. She had obviously not awakened her spirit base yet, and she had never learnt any kind of cultivation technique before. This caused Ling Han a great shock. Power would not simply appear without reason. For example, the origin power within the body of a martial artist had come from refining the spiritual qi around him, and Hunyao did not practice any kind of cultivation, so her power had obviously not come through this channel. Then it must have come from the food that she had eaten. Could this little girl be able to directly refine the food she ate into her own origin power? When this deduction arose in his mind, Ling Han could not help feeling astonished. What kind of terrifying ability was that? In order to prove the truth of this deduction, Ling Han and Lu Yutong kept hunting down demonic beasts for Hunyao to eat her fill. Indeed, the more she ate, the faster her power grew. But there was a limit to it, because her stomach was not a bottomless pit after all. By the time the 4 of them reached the imperial city, Hunyao was shockingly already in the 6th layer of body refining tier. This was not as terrifying as Ling Han's own pace of cultivation, but it was enough of a great shock because even now she had not yet awakened her spirit base. Ling Han had a feeling that he had picked up a valuable treasure.